The red-hot branding iron sank into the skin of his wrist, and Han Ji-yong didn't make a sound. Smoke rose from his flesh in a thin white wisp and dissolved into the midday air of the square. The inventory number Gen 4117 was seared deep into his skin. For life. Or for what remained of it. Lin Jiao stood 3 steps away, trying on a jadeite necklace in front of the carriage's bronze mirror. 800 silver liang. That was exactly how much it was worth, according to her calculations. That was exactly how much this jade necklace with a gold lotus-shaped clasp was worth. Her stepsister turned her head and smiled that smile he'd seen hundreds of times over the past 17 years. She said he shouldn't be angry. She said he'd always wanted to see the inside of the palace. She said she'd simply given him a dream. The slave trader Pak tugged on the chain, and Ji Yong lurched forward on his knees. Dust filled his mouth. His stepmother, Wei Liyin, stood behind Lin Jiao's shoulder, fanning herself with a silk fan. She said he had a pretty face, that perhaps third-rank maid might take him as a concubine, that this was more than he deserved. The slave trader took a family heirloom jade ring out of a leather pouch and held it out to Lin Jiao. The last thing left of his father. The family seal. Proof of his bloodline. Lin Jiao slipped it onto the little finger of her left hand, right over her necklace. The ring was too big for her, but she just laughed and clenched her fists so it wouldn't slip off. Ji Yong watched this through the smoke from his own branding. His face was blank. His eyes were dry. Inside, a counter clicked. A necklace worth 800 liang. The palace interest rate was 47% per annum, starting today. He memorized every number, every stone on the necklace, every fold in his stepmother's fan, every hair in the beard of the slave trader Pak. Something awoke in his mind the moment the brand seared his skin. Not rage, not despair. Structure. The carriage set off, and dust from the wheels engulfed him. Lin Jiao didn't even turn around. Wei Liang tossed a copper coin into the dust for him. For good luck, she said. The slave trader Pak tugged on the chain and dragged him along the road toward the capital. 4 other slaves walked ahead, 2 behind, all in silence, all bearing the same brands. Ji Yong walked and counted, out of an old habit from a life no one here knew about. He measured the distance by the length of the shadows, the caravan's speed by the frequency of the mule's steps, the cost of the goods on the carts that overtook them on the road. Salt in sacks at 4 lian per jin. 2 months ago, salt cost 2.5. A 60% increase. That meant one of 2 things. Either the salt mines in Yangzhou province were flooded, or someone was buying up salt in bulk, preparing for something big. War. Or famine. Or both. He hadn't even entered the palace yet, and he already knew that the Harem Empire was rotting from the inside. Prices don't lie. They don't know how to lie. The journey to the capital took 3 days. On the second day, Ji Yong saw a caravan bearing the crest of the Cho house. 6 wagons under guard. 32 soldiers in black breastplates. The wagons were not heading toward the capital but away from it. Northward. Toward the military fortresses. But they were not loaded with provisions or pay. Fabric, silk, wine, gifts. Someone from the House of Cho was buying the loyalty of the northern garrisons. Ji Yong memorized the number of wagons, the direction, the coat of arms, the faces of the guards, the number of swords. Something clicked in his mind, and threads stretched from the caravan to the price of salt. From the price of salt to the empty grain wagons he'd seen yesterday. From the empty wagons to the pale faces of the peasants in the village where they'd stayed. Everything is connected. Everything can be deciphered. It's just that no one here knows how to read it that way. The capital came into view on the 3rd day. Walls 20 jong high. Gates made of ironwood. The 9-layered palace on a hill behind 3 rings of walls. The slave trader Pak led them through the south gate and handed them over to the palace steward according to the inventory. 7 slaves. All men. All rank 0. Incapable of thought. That's what the document said. Ji Yong stood in line and looked up at the palace. 9 stories. 9 ranks. On the 1st floor, people like him clean the floors. On the 9th, Empress So Hua sits. The only rank 9 in the ruling dynasty's 200 years. 9 floors separated him from her. 0 insight points. A brand on his wrist. No right to speak.
The seal of silence.
Speaking a word in the presence of anyone above the 3rd rank without permission meant public execution. First, they would cut out his tongue, then his head. The palace stewardess received them in the lower courtyard. Senior concubine stewardess Cho Soryeon. Rank 5. 2,800 insight points. Daughter of the great house of Cho. She walked along the line and stopped in front of Ji-yoon. She looked down at him. He stood with his head bowed, as was proper. She took his chin between 2 fingers and lifted his face toward the light. She said he was nothing special. His face was clean. His eyes were empty. Let him scrub the floors in the treasury. They're short-handed there right now. She released his chin and moved on. Ji-yoon did not raise his gaze, but the counter was already ticking in his head. The Cho crest on her sash. The same crest as on the caravan heading north with gifts for the garrisons. Cho Soryeon. Rank 5. 2,800 points. Mistress of the men's wing. His mistress. The first thread fell into place. He was put up in a cubbyhole under the stairs in the kitchen wing. 3 steps long, 2 steps wide. A straw mat on the dirt floor. A bucket. A rag. He lay down on the mat and closed his eyes. In his mind, the register returned. 10,000 threads. Still empty, but the first lines were already glowing. Salt. 60%. The Choi house. A caravan heading north. 6 wagons. 32 fighters. Choi Soryeon. Rank 5. A necklace worth 800 lian. 47% per annum. Starting today. He opened his eyes in the darkness of the small room and for the first time in 3 days, allowed himself a single thought. Not revenge. Not rage. Calculation. In the morning, he was given a rag and a bucket of soapy water. A senior eunuch named Changbo Gyu led him down the first-floor corridor to the doorstep of the treasurer's reception room. The old man was over 60, rank 1, 40 years of service in the palace. He looked at Ji-yoon with a lingering gaze and said only one thing. Here, scrub my floors quietly. Don't look at the scrolls. Don't listen to the conversations. Don't think. Ji-young nodded. He took the rag. He entered the treasury reception hall and began to mop the floor. The treasury's reception hall occupied half of the first floor of the east wing. 8 desks. 16 clerks of ranks 1 through 3. 2 senior female inspectors of rank 4. And behind a separate screen, the desk of Finance Minister Wang Ye-lan, rank 7. 4,200 insight points. Ji-young scrubbed the floor without looking up. But he saw everything. Scrolls on the desks, ink seals, columns of numbers. The registry in his mind absorbed every symbol that came into view. On the 3rd day, he saw it. A scroll containing the salt tax report from Yeongjo province lay on the edge of the desk belonging to the junior clerk, Young Mi-ho. Rank 2. 19 years old. Slender fingers stained with ink. She was checking the numbers and frowning. Minister Wang Ye-lan, behind a screen, was telling someone that the report was perfect, that all the figures added up, that the Empress could rest easy. Ji-young ran a rag across the floor next to Mi-ho's desk. 8 seconds. 8 seconds were all he needed. A discrepancy in the 3rd column. 230,000 liang were being funneled through a front trading house called the White Crane. The address was fictitious. The seal was forged. The money was vanishing. He couldn't say a word. Rank 0. The seal of silence. A single word in the presence of an official higher than the 3rd rank, and his tongue to the chopping block. Ji-young dropped the rag next to Mi-ho's foot. He bent down to pick it up and whispered 3 numbers. 230,000. White Crane, 3rd column. Mi-ho flinched. She looked down. He was already walking away with the bucket toward the far wall. His back was hunched, his eyes fixed on the floor. A slave was washing the floors. Nothing had happened. Mi-ho watched him go for 7 heartbeats. Then she slowly lowered her gaze to the scroll. Third column, 230,000. She began to count. Yoon Mi-ho hadn't slept all night. The scroll lay before her on the table by the light of an oil lamp, and the numbers in the third column danced before her eyes. 230,000 liang, the White Crane Trading House. She checked the registry of the capital's trading houses. White Crane was listed at 8 South Blacksmith Street. She knew that street. Number 8 had been demolished 2 years ago after a fire. A vacant lot stood in its place. The trading house to which the imperial treasury had transferred 230,000 lian in silver did not exist. Mi-ho sat and stared at the numbers. Her hands were trembling. She was a junior clerk of rank 2, with an annual salary of 40 lians. 230,000 was the equivalent of the salaries of 5,750 people like her. She raised her head and looked into the darkness of the corridor, where 6 hours ago, a mute slave with a rag had whispered 3 words to her and left. Who was he? How did he know? Why did he tell her? She put those questions aside. The numbers were more important. In the morning, she dressed in clean clothes and requested an audience with Senior Inspector Kang Jae-in, rank 4, 1,600 points. Kang Jae-in listened and turned pale. She said that Mi-ho understood she was accusing a rank 7 minister. She said that if the numbers weren't confirmed, Mi-ho would lose her rank and be exiled. Mi-ho placed the scroll on the table and pointed to the third column. Kang Jae-in counted for 4 minutes. Then she turned even paler. She said she was going to see the chief auditor. 2 hours later, the scroll was on the desk of the chief auditor of the palace treasury. Rank 6, 3,400 points. She counted for 12 minutes. Then she summoned the guards. 6 hours later, the scroll was on Empress So-hwa's desk. Rank 9. The only 9th rank result in 200 years. The Empress read it for 3 minutes. Then she looked up and asked who had found the discrepancy. She was told it was junior clerk Yoon Mi-ho, rank 2. The Empress was silent for a moment. Then she ordered the arrest of Minister of Finance Wang Yo-lan. Guards entered the treasury at the hour of the snake. Wang Yo-lan was sitting behind a screen, drinking tea from a white porcelain cup. When the charges were read to her, the cup slipped from her fingers and shattered into 5 pieces. Ji-young was mopping the floor in the far corner of the reception hall. He saw the minister being led away. He saw the shards of the cup on the floor. He saw Wang Ye-lan's face. Fear. Not for herself, for someone else. She wasn't afraid of prison. She was afraid of those behind the white crane. A new thread was added to the web of thoughts in Ji-young's mind. Wang Ye-lan knew the money was disappearing. She wasn't the one stealing it. She was forced to do it. Who has the power to force a rank 7 minister to falsify a government report? Only someone of rank 8 or higher. There are 4 rank 8 individuals in the empire. Grand Strategist Baek Yoon-sol, head of the imperial court Moon Hae-won, High Priestess of the Phoenix Temple Ryu Seong-hwa, and the Grand Head of the Cho House, Cho Ban-hee, Cho Sordion's mother. A thread from the White Crane led to the caravan on the northern road, to the 6 wagons laden with gifts, to the Cho crest on the guards' breastplates. 230,000 liang. That would be enough to pay 3,000 mercenaries for half a year, or to buy off 2 northern garrisons in their entirety. The House of Cho does not steal. The House of Cho is arming itself. That evening, Ji-yoon returned to his tiny room under the stairs. He lay down on the mat. He closed his eyes. The counter in his head showed 340 new insight points. That made 340 out of the 1,000 needed for provisional rank 1. All for uncovering a single case of embezzlement. The network expanded further. The threads glowed brighter. He saw more connections than he had that morning. Seoul, Cho, the North, the army, money. It all came together into a picture that no one else in this palace had seen, but he couldn't utter a single sound aloud. The next morning, Mi-ho was promoted to rank 3 and transferred to the inspectorate. She was summoned to the chief auditor and handed a new seal. Mi-ho stood in the hallway with the seal in her hands, unable to believe it. 3 days ago, she had been a junior clerk with ink-stained fingers. Now she was a rank 3 inspector with the authority to audit financial reports. She walked past the treasury reception area and saw Ji-yoon. He was scrubbing the floor by the far wall. His back was hunched. His face was blank. The rag moved across the stone in measured circles. Miho stopped. She looked at him. He didn't look up. She wanted to say something, but what do you say to a rank 0 slave? Thank you for whispering those 3 numbers to me that turned the treasury upside down. No, that's impossible. It's dangerous even to think about it. She walked on. Ji-young continued washing the floor, but out of the corner of his eye, he saw the new seal on her belt. Rank 3. So it worked. Now she has access to reports that rank 2 clerks don't see. Grain taxes, military procurement, supply ledgers for the northern fortresses. These were exactly the documents he needed. That same day, Choi So-ryong summoned all the servants from the men's wing to assemble in the inner courtyard. 43 people, all rank 0. She walked down the line and stopped in the middle. She announced that Minister Wang Gyo-lan had been arrested. She said that someone far too clever had taken root in the palace. She said that if she found out that any of her servants had spoken in the presence of an official without permission, they would lose both their tongues and their heads. That was the order of things. She looked at each one. She held her gaze on Ji-yoon for 2 seconds longer than on the others. He stood with his head bowed. His face was blank. His back was hunched. Nothing. No signs of thought. So-ryong walked past. Ji-yoon exhaled only when her footsteps faded around the corner. 2 seconds. She looked at him 2 seconds longer. That meant she'd noticed something. She didn't know what yet, but the thread had been stretched. So-ryong had begun to watch. That evening, in his cramped room, Ji-young ran 3 scenarios through the registry. First, he continues to operate through Miho, a risk. So-ryong will start monitoring everyone who comes into contact with the new inspector. Miho is in danger. Second, he goes quiet for a month. Waits until So-ryong's attention shifts elsewhere. Wastes time. The Cho family could finish buying off the northern garrisons within a month. Third, he finds a second contact. Someone other than Miho. Someone So-ryong won't link to the treasury affair. Third scenario. Ji-yoon closed his eyes and ran through in his mind all the faces he had seen over the past 3 days in the palace. The old eunuch Chang Bo-gyu. Rank 1. 40 years in the palace. Knows all the secret passages. All the old scandals. All the creaking floorboards. No one notices him. He's part of the walls. Part of the stone. Even So-ryong doesn't consider him human. Perfect. That morning, Ji-young was mopping the floor in the hallway by the kitchen wing. Chang Bo-gyu was walking by with a laundry basket. Ji-young dropped a rag right at the old man's feet. He bent down. He whispered, "The Cho House caravan. 6 wagons. The northern road. Not provisions. Gifts." Chang Bo-gyu didn't stop. Didn't look down. Didn't slow his pace. He picked up the rag and dropped it into Ji-young's bucket in a single motion. He left. But that evening, when Ji-young returned to his little room, a folded piece of paper lay on the mat. On it, in an elderly man's handwriting, was a single sentence. It said something to the effect that he knew about the caravans and that they had been passing every 2 weeks since spring. Ji-young burned the note over an oil lamp. Every 2 weeks. Since spring. That's 5 months. At least 10 caravans. If each carries 230,000 liang worth of gifts for the northern garrisons, the total amount is over 2 million. The Che House isn't just buying loyalty. The Che House is building an army. Right under the nose of the rank 9 Empress. The registry in Ji-yoon's mind was ablaze with new threads. Red ones. That is the color of war. And somewhere up above, on the 9th floor of the 9-layered palace, Empress So-hwa stood by the window and gazed at the east wing. She had reread the report on the Wang Gyo-lan case 3 times. The figures were flawless. The logic was flawless. A junior rank 2 clerk had found what 4 rank 4 inspectors and a rank 7 minister had missed. The Empress clenched her fingers on the windowsill. She quietly uttered a single phrase. It meant that someone in this palace calculates faster than her ministers, and she wanted to know who. 9 floors below, Ji Yong lay on a mat in a cramped room under the stairs. 340 points. Rank 0. A brand on his wrist. A necklace worth 800 liang. 47% annual interest. The counter is ticking. Cho So-ryong struck first. On the fourth morning after Wang Yuelan's arrest, she summoned Ji Yong to the courtyard of the men's wing and ordered him to clean out the cesspit with his bare hands. In front of everyone. 42 slaves stood in a line and watched. So-ryong sat on a carved bench under a canopy, sipping olive tea. She didn't take her eyes off him. She was waiting for a reaction. Any reaction. Clenched fists. A flash in his eyes. Trembling lips. Chi Yong knelt before the pit and began to work. His face was blank. His hands moved smoothly. Not a single unnecessary movement. Soren finished her tea. She set down her cup. She told him he had until noon to finish, or else he would go without food for 3 days. She left. Ji Yong worked and counted. This was no time for pride. The dirt was being washed away. No data. As he knelt by the pit, he could see the windows of the east wing. He saw shadows behind the paper screens. He saw a maid carrying a stack of scrolls from the archives wing to Soryon's office. Military scrolls. He recognized the seal by the shape of the tube. Long red with black braid. Northern Army Chancellery. Soryon is requesting data on the northern garrisons. So she's doing the calculations too. Or perhaps someone from the Cho house is doing them for her. He cleaned out the pit in 3 hours. In silence. Without a single sound. By lunchtime, he received a bowl of cold rice and returned to the work at the treasury. Yoon Mi-ho was sitting at a new desk in the inspectorate. Rank 3. A new seal on her sash. Before her lay reports she had never seen before. Grain purchases for the northern fortresses. Ji-yoon was washing the floor and caught a glimpse of the first page of the top scroll out of the corner of his eye. Thebek. Garrison. 4,000 men. Pay had not been issued for 9 months. Grain reserves. 6 weeks' worth. Sonsan Fortress. Garrison. 2,800. Pay had not been issued for 9 months. 4 weeks' worth of supplies. Hamguan Fortress. Garrison of 3,500. The same 9 months. 3 weeks' worth of supplies. 3 fortresses. 10,300 soldiers without pay and without food. The northern border is defenseless. And the House of Choe is sending not silver but gifts there, silk and wine. They are buying not the army, but the generals. Soldiers are dying of hunger while their commanders drink wine bearing the Choe crest. The information in Ji Yong's mind formed a clear picture. The House of Choe isn't just plotting a coup. They're setting the stage for an invasion. A starving army won't defend the mountain passes. The Hungu steppe tribes will cut through the northern fortresses like a knife through wet paper. And when the empire loses the north, the House of Choe will step in as the savior. Classic. Create a crisis, offer a solution, seize power. He'd seen this before, in another life, in another world. But the pattern was the same. He had to act. But how? Mi-ho was now a rank 3. She had access to military reports. But if she went public with another expose just a week after the first, it would raise suspicions. Soryon is already watching. A different move is needed. That evening, Ji Yong ran into Jang Bo-gyu in the kitchen hallway. The old man was carrying dinner for the servants on the upper floors. Ji Yong whispered a single word. Archive. Jang Bo-gyu didn't stop. But that night, a new note was lying on the mat. The old man's handwriting. It said the archive was on the 2nd floor. The key was with the caretaker, Pan Gyong-hee. Rank 3. She falls asleep at the hour of the rat after drinking rice wine. The second door to the left of the staircase. The floorboard by the threshold creaks. Step on the right side. Ji-yoon burned the note. Jang Bo-gyu knows the palace like the back of his hand. 40 years. Every door. Every floorboard. Every habit of every official. And he's helping. Why? Ji-yoon has put that question aside for now. At the hour of the rat, he got up from the mat. The palace corridors are empty at night. A patrol passes by every quarter of an hour. He'd figured out the rhythm in 2 days. 8 minutes from turn to turn. He needs 3 minutes. The archive door. A floorboard at the threshold. He stepped on it from the right. Silence. Inside, darkness and the smell of old paper. The registry activated instantly. The threads glowed in the dark. He couldn't see the letters on the scrolls, but he saw the seals. The shape of the tubes, the color of the braid. Red and black meant the Northern Army. Blue and white meant the Treasury. Green and gold meant trade licenses. He needed the red and black one. 3 shelves to the left. He pulled out the first tube, unrolled the scroll. Darkness. But the moonlight streaming through a crack and shutter provided enough light for the registrar to read the text. An order regarding the distribution of pay for the Northern Army. Date: 7 months ago. Signature: Treasurer of Yongzhou Province. Amount: 180,000 liang of silver. Sent. Received. But the recipient's entry didn't match the fortress registry. The money hadn't gone to Taibek, nor to Sonsan, nor to Hamguan. The money had gone to the trading house. Ji Yong read the name, and all the threads in his mind at once. White Crane. The same front company. The same address on South Blacksmith Street, house number 8, the one that burned down 2 years ago. 180,000 from the military budget, plus 230,000 from the salt tax. 410,000 through the very same loophole. But these were only 2 documents out of hundreds. How many more? He unrolled the second scroll, the third, the fourth. The register was absorbing data at a speed that would make an ordinary person lose consciousness. In 6 minutes, he read 11 scrolls. The total amount embezzled through the White Crane over the past year amounted to 1,140,000 liang of silver. Over 1 million. That would be enough to maintain an army of 5,000 fully equipped soldiers for a year, or to bribe half the officials in the northern provinces. Ji Yong rolled up the scrolls. He put them back in their place. He stepped out. The hallway. To the right. Silence. The corridor was empty. The patrol would pass in 4 minutes. He returned to the small room and lay down on the mat. His heart beat steadily. His hands did not tremble. But inside, the register was ablaze. 1,140,000. The Cho family had stolen 1,140,000 liang from the empire in a single year. The Northern Army wasn't going unpaid because the treasury was empty. The treasury wasn't empty. There was money. But it was flowing to the White Crane and returning as weapons, silk, and wine on caravans bearing the Cho crest. He ran through the simulation. 3 scenarios over 30 days. First, he passes all the information through Miho. She takes it to the Empress. The Cho family finds out. Miho is dead within a week. An accident. Poisoning. A fall down the stairs. No. Second, he leaves an anonymous report on the Empress's desk. How? The 9th floor. 8 levels of security. He has no access above the 1st floor. Impossible. Impossible for now. Third, he proceeds in stages. 1 piece of information each week through 1 person at a time. Not just Miho. Different people. Different channels. So that the picture comes together gradually and no single source is obvious. Third scenario. It takes a long time, but it's safe. He'll start small. There's 1 report that needs to be seen not by the Empress, but by someone lower down. Someone who will start digging on her own. Guard Captain Im Sola, rank 4. The daughter of an impoverished military family. She's in charge of security for the 2nd and 3rd floors. Her father was killed on the northern border 8 years ago. The Taibek garrison. The very same garrison that isn't paid its salary. If she finds out that her dead father's money was stolen by the Cho house, she won't stay silent. She's not the type to keep quiet. Ji Yoon has seen her twice in the hallway. Back straight, steely gaze, hand always on the hilt of her sword. She hates the Cho house. You can tell that without the registry. But how to get the information to her? He's a slave. She is rank 4. Between them lies the seal of silence. 1 word, and his tongue will be on the chopping block. He needs a bridge. Miho. Miho is now rank 3. She can speak with Im Sole, but Miho must not know where the information came from. There must be no trail leading back to him. That morning, Ji-yoon was mopping the floor in the inspector's office. Miho was sitting at a desk, reviewing a report on military procurement. He dropped the rag. He bent down. He whispered, "Something about the Taebaek Fortress's payroll. Compare it with the payment ledger for the past year. See where the money went." He left. Miho froze over the scroll. Then she slowly looked up. The slave with the rag was already washing the floor by the far wall. His back was hunched. His face was blank. She looked at the scroll. The Taebaek Fortress, payroll, payment register. Her fingers reached for the shelf with the military reports. 3 hours later, she sat as pale as rice paper, staring at the numbers. 180,000 riang. White crane. Again. She stood up from the table and did not go to the chief auditor. She went to Captain Im Sol-ae of the Guard. Because the recipient's name listed the garrison where Im Sol-ae's father served, and the money had not reached that garrison. Ji-yoon was mopping the floor and listening to Miho's heels clacking against the stone slabs of the corridor. Right direction, right recipient. The eyes of insight in his head clicked. Plus 280. Total, 620. 380 left until conditional rank 1. He continued washing the floor. A necklace worth 800 lian. 47% annual interest. The interest is trickling in. Im Sole smashed the table. She simply struck it with her fist, and the elm tabletop split in half. Scrolls scattered across floor. Miho took a step back. Im Sole stood over the table's debris, breathing heavily. Her face was stony. Her eyes were dry. She said that her father had commanded the Taebaek garrison 8 years ago. She said he had written 3 petitions requesting pay for the soldiers. The 3 petitions were returned with a note stating that the funds had been redirected. The soldiers didn't receive a single coin. Her father led half the garrison against the Humgu raid without warm clothing or supplies. He died in the Songhua Gorge along with 200 soldiers. She was 11. Her mother died a year later. Im Sol-ae picked up a fragment of the table and slowly set it on the floor. She turned to Miho. She asked how she had found that out. Miho said she had found it in the military reports. It was true. Partly. Im Sol-ae looked into her eyes for 10 seconds. Then she said she wanted to see every scroll about the White Crane. Every single one. From the very first day. Miho nodded. A new ally had stepped onto the board. Ji-yoon found out about it that evening. Jang Bo-gyu left a note on the mat. Apparently, the captain of the guard had retrieved all documents from the archives regarding military supplies over the past 3 years. 14 tubes. Her assistant carried them in 2 trips. Ji-young burned the note and closed his eyes. A simulation. 3 scenarios over 14 days. Im Sol-ah will start digging. She's in the military. She digs like a soldier. Straightforward, loudly, openly. It's dangerous. Sortion will notice. Cho Ban-hee will notice. If Im Sol-ah gets her hands on the sensitive documents before he can set up a cover story for her, the Cho family will eliminate her. An accident. Poison in her tea. A knife in a dark hallway. He needs to slow Im Sol-ah down just enough to have time to prepare his next move. And at the same time, give her enough so she doesn't lose the trail. A balance on the edge of a knife. On the morning of the 5th day after Wang Gyo-lan Ji-young's arrest, he was mopping the floor on the 1st floor of the West Wing. This was where the trade license office was located. Scrolls bound with green braid and gold thread. All trading houses in the empire are required to renew their licenses annually through this office. The license fee depends on turnover. Ji-young was washing the floor and caught a glimpse of the current year's registry out of the corner of his eye. White Crane. The license was renewed 4 months ago. The turnover is listed as 12,000 liang. 12,000. When the actual cash flow was over 1 million, someone at the office stamped it without looking. Or perhaps they looked and were paid off for it. Ji-young memorized the name of the official who applied the stamp. Hong Se-bayol, rank 3, 1,100 points. He memorized her face. Young. Nervous. Her fingers tremble when she picks up a brush. Either she's afraid, or she knows. A new thread. He continued scrubbing the floor. At the office door, he ran into Che Soryon. She was accompanied by 2 maids and stopped right in front of him. He was on his knees with a rag. She looked down. She said he was dirty, that he stinks, that he needs to wash more often. One of the maids giggled. Soryon smiled. Then she leaned down and whispered. She said she was watching him. She said nothing happens in this palace without her knowledge. She said that if Gen 417 ever opens his mouth out of line, she'll personally cut out his tongue and make him swallow it. She straightened up. She left. Her heels clacked against the stone. Ji-young didn't move. He didn't look up. The rag in his hand didn't waver. But in his mind, a switch flipped. Soryon isn't just keeping an eye on things. She specifically suspects him. That means she has an informant among the servants in the men's wing. Someone saw him drop the rag next to Miho, or someone saw Jang Bo-gyu pick up that rag, or someone noticed that he lingered 3 seconds longer than usual by the scroll in the treasury. We need to find Soryon's informant, today. That evening, Ji-yoon lay on a mat, going over the faces in his mind. 42 servants in the men's wing. Which one of them? The registry suggested 4 candidates. Those whom Soryon had summoned to her chambers more often than the others over the past month. 2 served her meals. 1 did her laundry. 1 cleaned her rooms. The chambermaid, a slave named Ke. Number Gen 308, 30 years old, a gaunt face, shifty eyes. He glanced back at Ji-young 3 times during roll call. 3 times, not 2, not 4. 3. Every time Soren walked past Ji-young, Ke looked at him and then at her. A connection, a thread. Ke is Soren's eyes. He's signaling her. For what? For an extra serving of rice? For a spot by a warm wall in winter? For the mere hope that the mistress would show mercy? It doesn't matter. What matters is that now Ji-young knows. It can be circumvented. It can even be exploited. If Ke sees what needs to be seen, he'll report to Soryon exactly what she needs to hear. A controlled leak. A basic tool. In another life, he used it every Tuesday. On the 6th day, Miho arrived at work in the inspectorate and found a new scroll on her desk. A register of grain shipments to the northern fortresses over the past 6 months. She hadn't requested this document. Someone had placed it on her desk during the night. She unrolled the scroll and began to read. 20 minutes later, she understood. The grain was being purchased at an inflated price through a middleman. A middleman. The Lin Trading House. Ji-young found out about this later. He hadn't planted that scroll on her desk. He didn't even know about it. Someone else was moving the pieces on the board. Someone who wanted Miho to see the connection between the Cho House and the Lin House. The Lin Trading House. Lin Jiao. His half-sister. The one who sold him for 800 liang. The one who wears a jadeite necklace and the family ring on her little finger. The Lin House supplies grain to the Northern Army at inflated prices through a contract with the Treasury, and the Treasury was controlled by Wang Ye-lan, who worked for the Cho House. The thread. The Lin House. The Cho House. Wang Ye-lan. White Crane. The Northern Fortresses. His sister didn't just sell him into slavery. She and her mother were part of a system that plundered the empire and starved the soldiers on the border. Ji-young stood in the cubbyhole under the stairs and stared at the wall. A necklace worth 800 liang, 47% annual interest. But now, a new item had been added to the interest. Inflated grain prices for soldiers who were freezing and dying without pay. The debt is growing. But who planted the scroll? Ri-jae ran through the possibilities. Someone with access to the archives. Someone who knows what Miho is investigating. Someone who wants to help. Or someone who wants to steer the investigation in the right direction. An ally or a puppet master. It's unclear for now. That evening, Chang Bo-gyu walked past the small room and didn't stop. But he dropped a crumpled piece of paper at the threshold. Ji-young picked it up. An elderly person's handwriting, as if a woman in a dark coat had slipped the note under the door. He didn't see her face, but she had a military gait. From the upper floors. A woman. A military gate. The upper floors. Rank 5 or higher. Ji-young burned the note. A new figure emerged in his mind. Someone up there is playing a parallel game. Someone who sees the same things he does, or part of what he sees. And that someone has decided to use Miho as a tool, just as Ji-young does. 2 puppeteers for 1 puppet. Dangerous. Miho won't be able to withstand the pressure from both sides. He needs to find out who this is. He needs to do it quickly. On the 7th day, Chae Soryeon struck a second blow. She transferred Ji-young from the treasury to the laundry room, further away from the scrolls, further away from the numbers, further away from Miho. The order was issued officially. Slave Shoe 417 is being transferred to the service wing due to substandard cleaning performance. Soryeon smiled as she read the order aloud. She thought she was cutting him off from the source. She was right, but not far enough. The laundry room was located in the basement of the West Wing. This is where the linens from all floors of the palace were washed, all 9 of them. This meant that the clothes of every official, from rank 1 to rank 8, and notes remain in the pockets of their clothes. Scraps, drafts, sometimes entire documents forgotten out of absent-mindedness. Ji-young began washing the laundry and began checking the pockets. On his very first day, he found a draft of a letter in the sleeve of a rank 5 female official's ceremonial robe, addressed to someone as Great Mother. The text was brief. It said the 3rd shipment had been sent. The Hamgwon garrison had received it. Commander Yeon Da-hee signed the receipt. Ready for spring. Great Mother. Cho Ban-hee. Rank 8. Head of the Cho House. Mother Soryeon. Commander Hamgwon has already been bought off. Ready for spring. 5 months until spring. The goggles of insight clicked. Plus 180. Total 800. 200 points left until provisional rank 1. Soryeon sent him to the laundry room, thinking she'd blinded him. The draft from his sleeve cost 200 points and a sleepless night. Ji-young washed clothes 16 hours a day. His hands were chapped from the lye. The skin on his fingers peeled off and regrew as a tough crust. But every robe, every sleeve, every pocket passed through his hands and the registry. On his 2nd day in the laundry, he found a receipt from the Golden Chrysanthemum Tea House. Ji-young memorized the address. South Quarter, Silk Lantern Street. A tea house where mid-level officials meet in their free time. A receipt for 4 people. Date, the day before yesterday. Amount, 40 liang for tea. 40 liang is the monthly salary of a 2nd-rank clerk. Who pays 40 liang for tea? Someone who isn't buying tea but conversation. On the 3rd day, he found a scrap of a list in the cuff of a 6th-rank female official's ceremonial robe from the Office of Appointments. 4 names, 4 positions, 4 provinces. Next to each name was a sum, ranging from 500 to 2,000 liang. It was a list of bribes for appointments to provincial administrations. The appointments office was selling positions. The registry immediately pulled the strings. The appointments office reports to the 3rd Secretariat. The 3rd Secretariat oversees Cho Ban-hee through his B. The Cho family doesn't just steal money and buy off generals. They place their own people in the provinces. They build a network. When the time comes for a coup, there will be a Cho-loyal official in every province who will open the gates. Insight points. Plus 200. Total 1,000. Rank 1. Conditional. Formally, he is still a slave with a brand and an inventory number. Formally, he is incapable of thought. But the registry in his head now contained more data than the archive on the 2nd floor. He knew about the White Crane, about the caravans, about Commander Hamgwon, about the positions that had been sold off, about the inflated prices at the House of Lin, about the informant Ke, about the unknown figure with a military bearing. 1,000 threads. And every one led to the House of Cho. The problem is that knowledge without action is dead weight. He needs to pass the information up the chain. But Soryeon had transferred him to the laundry, and now an entire wing of the palace stood between him and Miho. Chang Bo-ji can pass notes, but it's a one-way channel. He needs feedback. He needs to know what Miho is doing, what Im Sole is doing, and most importantly, what the mysterious figure from the upper floors is doing. That evening, he found a way. The laundry room serves all the floors. Clean linens are delivered upstairs via a system of baskets and rope lifts. Every morning, a servant from the laundry room hauls a basket up to the appropriate floor. Until now, the senior laundresses had carried the baskets to the upper floors. But Ji-yoon volunteered. A senior laundress of rank 0 named Kang Sun looked at him suspiciously. Then she shrugged, as if to say, if he wants to haul heavy loads, let him haul them. On the morning of the 8th day, Ji-yoon carried a basket of clean linens up to the 2nd floor, then to the 3rd, then to the 4th. On each floor, he walked down the 4th. On each floor, he walked down the hallway to the linen closet. He laid out the robes, the rags, and the sheets, and he looked. 2nd floor, the archives wing. He saw the door to the archives he'd sneaked into at night. He saw the custodian, Pan Gyung-hee. She was asleep at her desk. The hour of the snake. Rice wine. Just as Jang Bo-gyu had said. 3rd floor, the inspectorate department. He saw Miho's desk. On the desk was a stack of scrolls. Military tubes, red with black braid. She continues to dig. An unfamiliar woman was sitting next to her desk. Rank 5. A seal on her sash. Internal Investigations Office. Miho was talking to her. Both of their faces were serious. Tense. Internal Investigations Office. This is the department that investigates officials. If they're involved, the case has escalated from a financial audit to a government investigation. Serious. Fast. Too fast. 4th floor. Military wing. Im Sol-a's office. The door is closed. Voices from behind the door. Im Sol-a and someone else. A woman's voice. Low. Authoritative. Ji-young was putting away his clothes in the closet and listening. The voice behind the door said the name Cho Bang-hee, then the word caravan, then the word evidence. Im Sol-a replied that there was evidence. The voice said it was too early, that more was needed, that the Cho family couldn't be touched until there was a complete case file, otherwise they would destroy the evidence and turn the tables on the accusers. The voice knew. The voice was playing the same game. Ji-young closed the closet and went downstairs. The voice was etched into his mind. Low, commanding, accustomed to giving orders, rank 6 or higher. Military training and phrasing. Who in the palace is rank 6 or higher, with a military background and enough authority to restrain a rank 4 captain of the guard from premature action? The registry went through the candidates. 3 names, but one fit perfectly. Grand Strategist Baek Yoon-sol, rank 8, 6,200 insight points. 30 years in office. If Baek Yoon-sol is conducting a parallel investigation against the Cho house, the empire has a chance. But if she proceeds too slowly, the Chos will have time to prepare. 5 months until spring. Ji-yoon returned to the laundry room and plunged his hands into the soapy water. It was hot. The stinging sensation ate away at the fresh cracks in his skin. The pain was sharp. He didn't flinch. He was counting. So, Miho is digging through the Internal Investigations Bureau. Im Sol-a is digging through the military archives. Someone of rank 8 is coordinating and keeping things in check. Jang Bo-gyu is passing notes, and Ji-young is at the center of the web. A rank 0 slave with wet hands and 1,000 threads in his head. Good. But one thing is missing. A direct strike against So-ryun. She's still the mistress of the men's wing. She's still his mistress. She can still order him to be flogged or killed on a whim. He needs to weaken her position, not destroy it. It's too early for that, but to shake it up. On the 9th day, he found it in the pocket of So-ryun's silk robe. She'd sent it to the laundry after the official reception. Ji-young unfolded the robe and checked every seam. In a secret pocket behind the lining lay a folded piece of paper. Personal correspondence. From So-ryun to a merchant named Baek Jung-woo. Content, an order for rare incense from the southern islands. Amount, 3,000 liang. Payment from the men's wing maintenance fund. 3,000 liang from the budget for food and clothing for 43 slaves. That's why the rice in the men's wing is cold and watery. That's why the winter blankets haven't been changed in 3 years. That's why 2 slaves died last winter from a cold they had no way to treat. 3,000 ryong for incense. Ji-young folded the slip back into his pocket. He sewed up the lining. He sent the robe to the laundry as usual. But the numbers were already blazing in the register. 3,000 liang, the maintenance fund. Merchant Baek Jong-woo, the Southern Islands. This isn't information for the Empress. It's too trivial for a matter of state. But it's perfect for an internal audit of the palace's finances. And the audit takes place once a quarter. The next one is in 12 days. If by then, the inspector from the household department receives an anonymous tip to check the maintenance fund for the men's wing. If the numbers don't add up. If it turns out that Soryeon was spending the slaves' money on personal luxuries. It won't bring her down, but it's a stain. The first stain on her impeccable reputation as an administrator. The first crack. Ji-young took a scrap of cloth out of his pocket and wrote 3 lines with a charcoal stick. Men's Wing Fund. Baek Jong-woo. 3,000 ryong. He rolled it up and hid it in the laundry basket for the 3rd floor. Tomorrow morning he'll carry the laundry upstairs. And he'll drop the scrap of cloth by the door to the housekeeping office. Accidentally. Like a rag. No one will notice, except the one who needs to. On the 10th day, something happened that he hadn't expected. Cho Soryeon came to the laundry room in person. She never came to the laundry room. It was beneath her dignity, but she came, accompanied by 2 female security guards. She stood at the entrance and surveyed the room. 10 female and male laundry workers, vats of water, ropes of laundry, steam, the smell of lye. She walked between the vats and stopped in front of Ji-yoon. He was standing knee-deep in water. His hands were covered in suds. His head was bowed. Soren remained silent for 30 seconds. Then she said that something interesting had happened yesterday at the Treasury. Apparently, a rank 5 inspector from the Internal Investigations Office had demanded all documents pertaining to the White Zhu ravel. Apparently, someone in the palace was conducting an investigation against her family. Apparently, it all started on the day that the new slave, Shu 417, began mopping the floors in the treasury. A coincidence, of course. She smiled. Then she struck him across the face with her open palm. His head jerked. His cheek flushed. He didn't make a sound. He didn't raise his hands. He stood knee-deep in soapy water, his face blank. Soren struck him again. On the other side. The ring on her finger sliced the skin above his cheekbone. Blood trickled down his cheek into the soapy water. He stared at the floor. Soren leaned toward his face. She whispered. She said she didn't know how. That she doesn't know what he's doing. But she feels drawn to him for some reason. That if she finds even a single piece of evidence, he won't just be killed. They'll cut him up for 3 days. She straightened up, turned around, walked away. Her heels clacked on the wet stone. Ji-young stood in the water. Blood dripped from his cheekbone. 10 people were watching him. No one said a word. He dipped his hands into the water and continued washing. That evening, in his tiny room, he treated the wound with a rag soaked in vinegar. It stung. He sat in the dark and thought. Soryeon suspects, but she doesn't know. She's striking at random. But every blow brings her closer to the truth. The informant, Ke. If Ke saw him with Chang Bo-gyu, if Ke saw the laundry basket for the 3rd floor, if Ke notices the scrap of fabric tomorrow morning, Ke must be neutralized, not killed, not intimidated, redirected. The registry proposed a solution. Ke is afraid of Soryeon, but Ke is even more afraid of going without food. Winter rations have been cut. The men's wing fund has been plundered. If Kay finds out that his watery rice is the result of Soryeon spending their money on incense, if Kay realizes that the mistress he serves is stealing from him, loyalty crumbles when hunger is stronger than fear. Ji-yoon closed his eyes. In the morning, he'll carry the laundry to the 3rd floor. He'll drop a scrap of paper at the housekeeping office. And in the evening, over dinner, he'll quietly say 3 words to Kay. Incense. 3,000 liang. Our money. Not directly. Through a third slave. Through whispers behind the wall. A conversation overheard by chance. Kay will eavesdrop. Kay will think. Kay will say nothing to Soren. Or if he doesn't keep quiet and runs to report it, what he'll say is that Zoo 417 whispered about the mistress's incense. Soren will ask how he knows, and he'll realize that someone has been checking her personal expenses. Not Ji Young, the one conducting the audit, the one who will find the scrap of fabric by the inspection door tomorrow morning. Soryon will rush to plug the financial hole instead of hunting him down. A gain of time. A week. Maybe 2. That'll be enough for him. The insight points clicked. Plus 100 for uncovering embezzlement from the maintenance fund. Total, 1,100. Conditional rank 1 cleared. Status, special assignment servant. Formally, nothing has changed. He's still a slave. Still doing laundry. Still sleeping in the cubbyhole. But formally, servants with 1,000 points receive 1 privilege. Access to the second floor archive to submit maintenance requests. 1 door, 2 hours a week. That's enough. It's exactly what he needs. In the darkness of the cubbyhole, Ji Young allowed himself a second smile. Subtle. Fleeting. The cut on his cheek twinged with pain. He didn't flinch. A necklace for 800 liang. 47% annual interest, counting from that day. And beyond the wall of the cubbyhole, in the nighttime hallway, stood a shadow. Old Chang Bo-gyu stood by the wall and listened to the silence. Then he quietly left. Meanwhile, on the 4th floor in her office, Im Sol-a was sharpening a sword. Slowly, methodically, her father's blade, which she had kept for 8 years. And for the first time in 8 years, she knew why. A scrap of fabric landed by the door of the housekeeping office exactly at the hour of the hair. Ji-yoon was carrying a basket of laundry to the 3rd floor and gave it a jolt at the threshold. The fabric fell out. He didn't stop. He didn't look back. He walked on. He sorted the laundry into the cupboard. He went back downstairs. 4 hours later, Ro Gyung-ah, a rank 4 inspector from the housekeeping department, picked up the scrap. She read it. Men's Wing Fund. Baek Jong-woo. 3,000 ryang. Ro Gyung-ah was one of those officials who loved order more than people. Numbers were sacred to her. If someone spent public funds on personal needs, she took it as a personal insult. She summoned her assistant and ordered her to pull up all the expense reports for the men's wing from the past year. By evening of that same day, Ji-yoon had launched the second part of his plan. In the dining hall for the male wing's slaves, he sat down next to a quiet young man named Mo. Number Shu 412, 22 years old, harmless, a bit dim-witted, likes to chat. Chi Young leaned over his bowl and quietly uttered 4 words. Something about the mistress buying incense with our money. Not to Mo, to the wall, to the air. He simply let the phrase slip into the void between 2 spoonfuls of watery rice. Mo froze with a spoon at his mouth. He looked at Ziyang. Ziyang was already eating. His face was blank, his eyes fixed on the bowl. There was nothing there. But Mo heard it. And 2 tables away from them sat Ke, Sorion's informant. He was staring into his bowl, but his ears worked better than his eyes. He heard it too. Or maybe he didn't. It doesn't matter. What matters is that Mo will tell his cellmate tonight. His neighbor will tell another. In 2 days, all 43 slaves in the men's wing will know that their rations have been cut because Sorion is spending the maintenance fund on incense from the southern islands. Ke will face a choice. Report to Sorion that the slaves are grumbling, or keep quiet because he, too, is hungry, because he, too, has no winter clothes, because his comrades died last winter. Whichever choice Ke makes works in Ji Young's favor. He'll report it. Sorion will start plugging the financial hole. He'll stop keeping tabs on him. If he stays silent, Sorion will lose sight of what's happening in the men's wing. Ji Young finished his rice broth and returned to his cubicle. The cut on his cheek had scabbed over. On the morning of the 11th day, he took advantage of his new privilege. Special assignment servant. 1,000 points. access to the second-floor archive, 2 hours a week for submitting supply requests. He filled out a request for new rags for the laundry. It took 3 minutes. He spent the remaining 1 hour and 57 minutes among the shelves. The custodian, Pan Gyong-hee, was asleep at her desk. Rice wine. As always. The registry was running at full capacity. The threads flashed with every scroll that was unrolled. In 1 hour and 57 minutes, he read 43 documents. Tax documents, military, trade, diplomatic. The entire picture of the empire unfolded before him. The northern fortresses are starving. The western provinces are behind on their taxes for the third quarter. The southern ports are losing revenue due to piracy off the coast. The eastern mines are 40% depleted. The treasury reports that everything is in order. The Empress receives reports in which the figures have been polished and smoothed over. Not a single report reflects reality. The Harem Empire isn't rotting. It's already dead. It just hasn't fallen yet. Ji-yoon stood among the shelves and saw threads. Thousands of threads. Red, black, gold. Each led from one document to another, from one lie to the next. The Cho house is merely the largest parasite, but not the only one. 4 of the 6 great houses keep double sets of books. The Lin house, his own family's house, inflates the prices of military supplies. The Moon house withholds tax transfers and launders money through loan sharks. The Ryu house writes off temple property to dead souls. Only the Baek house and the Im house are clean. The Baek house because the great strategist Baek Yoon-sol does not tolerate theft. The Im house because the Im family has become so impoverished that there is nothing left to steal and no one left to steal from. 43 documents, plus 400 insight points. Total, 1,500. He returned the scrolls to their place. He picked up the request for rags. He left the archive. Pan Kyung-hee didn't even flinch. On his way back to the stairs, he ran into Yoon Mi-ho. She was walking down the second-floor hallway with a stack of scrolls in her hands. She saw him. She stopped. He stood with his head bowed, his hands at his sides, the rag request in his right hand, a slave with a slip of paper. Nothing out of the ordinary. Mi-ho looked at him for 5 seconds. Then she spoke quietly, as if to say she didn't know who he was, as if to say she didn't know how he knew what he knew. But if he needed help, he should just say so. She owed him one. Ji-yoon didn't look up. He didn't answer. The seal of silence. She's rank 3. He's rank 0. 1 word, and his tongue would be on the chopping block. Mi-ho stood there for another 3 seconds. She sighed. She walked on. Ji-young stood in the hallway and listened to her receding footsteps. She trusts him. That's good. That's dangerous. Trust creates a connection. A connection can be traced. Soryeon will trace it. Direct contact must be prevented. But Mi-ho said something important. She owes him a favor. She's ready to act. It's a trump card he'll save for the right moment. On the evening of the 12th day, 2 events occurred simultaneously. First, Inspector Ro Kyung-ah submitted an official request to audit the men's wing maintenance fund. The request was registered at the 3rd-floor office. Chae Soryeon found out an hour later. Jang Bo-gyu saw her emerge from her chambers, pale and furious. He saw her summon the men's wing treasurer and shop behind closed doors for 20 minutes. He saw her send a maid to the merchant Baek Jung-woo with a note. She was canceling the order. She demanded the advance payment back. Soryeon rushed to plug the hole, just as the register had predicted. The second event was unexpected. A woman whom Ji-yoon had never seen before came down to the laundry room, rank 7, a seal on her sash. The Secret Chancellery. Yu Hana, head of the Secret Chancellery. 45 years old, a gaunt face, eyes like 2 nails. She walked slowly through the laundry room. She looked at each of the 10 laundresses. She lingered on Ji-yoon for 1 second. Exactly 1, no more. Then she turned and left. 1 second. A professional doesn't look any longer. A professional remembers at first glance. Yu Hana, rank 7, 3,800 points. A professional spy. If the Empress ordered a search for someone who could calculate faster than her ministers, she would have entrusted the task to Yu Hana. And Yu Hana began her search. From the bottom up. From the laundries. From the kitchens. She's working her way up from the bottom because she understands that the person who uncovered the theft of 230,000 liang couldn't be an official. An official wouldn't whisper to a junior clerk. An official would file a report. So it must be someone without a voice, someone below the third rank, someone forbidden to speak. Yu Hana is searching for a silent one. Ji Yun stood knee-deep in soapy water and felt the space closing in on him. Soryan was hunting him from above. Yu Hana was searching for him from below. Two predators. One wants to kill him. The other wants to find him. If Soryan finds him first, he's dead. If Yu Hana finds him first, it's unclear. The secret chancellery could be an ally, or it could be yet another cage. It depends on what the Empress wants. Ji Yong ran the simulation. Yu Hana will check every slave who had contact with Miho on the day the theft was discovered. She'll request the lists. Who mopped the floor in the treasury? Who was near Miho? Who stood at her desk? On the list of treasury cleaners for that day, there's one name, Shu 417. Yu Hana will come for him. In a day. In 2 days. A week at most. He needs to prepare. Don't run. There's nowhere to run. A branded slave won't get past the gates. But he must prepare his position. If Yu Hana comes to interrogate him, everything depends on his answers. No, not on his answers. He can't answer. The seal of silence. She's rank 7. He's rank 0. One word without permission, and it's execution. So, if she asks a question, he won't answer. Not because he doesn't want to, because he can't. And Yu Hana, a professional spy, will understand that. And she'll understand that this is precisely why he operates through the mouths of others. And that will be his answer, without a single word. On the night of the 13th day, Ji Yong lay on a mat, unable to sleep. The register was at work. The threads were rearranging themselves. New connections, new knots. He could see the entire palace, all 9 floors, all 6 houses, all the flows of money and power. And he saw a crack right at the center. Empress So Hua, rank 9, the only 9 in 200 years. She sits at the top and doesn't see that the foundation is crumbling. Not because she's stupid, because they're lying to her. Everyone. Every day. Every report. Every figure is polished and tailored. She makes decisions based on data that has no connection to reality. Even the smartest person in the room is powerless if all the incoming data is a lie. He needs to break through the wall of lies. Not through Miho, not through Im-Sol A. Directly. He needs to lay the truth on the Empress's desk. But between him and the 9th floor are 8 levels of security. Hundreds of officials, thousands of eyes. And the seal of silence. It's impossible for now, but not forever. He rolled over on the mat. Yu Hana came on the 15th day, not to the laundry room, to the storage closet. Ji Yong woke up to find someone standing in the doorway. Darkness. The hour of the ox. The dead of night. He couldn't see her face. He saw a silhouette. Thin. Upright. Motionless. Yu Hana stood there and looked at him for 30 seconds without moving. Then she came in. She sat down on the floor across from his mat. She crossed her legs. She placed her hands on her knees. She didn't light the lantern. Darkness. 2 people in a tiny room, 3 steps by 2. She was silent. He was silent. She knows he cannot speak. Rank 7 versus rank 0. The seal of silence. 1 word and execution. She didn't come for words. She came to watch. 30 years in the secret chancellery teaches you to read people without words. By their breathing. By the tension in their muscles. By the movement of their eyes in the dark. Ji Yong lay on the mat, motionless. His breathing was steady. His pulse was 62. He controlled every beat. Not because he knew how, because in his past life, he'd been taught to pass a polygraph. Different technology, same principle. Don't lie with your body. Yuhana sat there for 3 minutes. Then she pulled a scroll from her sleeve. She placed it on the floor between them. She unrolled it. In the darkness, Ji-young couldn't see the text, but he saw the seal, red with gold. The Imperial Court Chancellery. Yuhana spoke softly. She said it was a list of everyone who had mopped the floors in the treasury on the day young Mi-ho discovered the embezzlement. She said there was one name on the list. Jen Si-yi-chi. She said she'd checked his background. A bastard of the Lin house. Sold by his half-sister for 800 liang. Branded 12 days ago. Rank 0. Incapable of thought. She paused. Then she spoke. Interesting, she said. 12 days after he appeared in the palace, the Minister of Finance was arrested. A junior clerk was promoted. The captain of the guard requested the military archives. The audit office is inspecting the men's wings funds. And the Internal Investigations Bureau has opened a case against the White Crane Trading House. What a coincidence, she said. She stood up, rolled up the scroll, hid it in her sleeve, looked down at him from above. In the darkness, he couldn't see her eyes, but he could feel her gaze. 2 nails. She uttered her final sentence. She said the Empress wants to know who can calculate faster than her ministers. She said Yuhana wants to know too. She said, however, that she is in no hurry. She said that's because whoever can calculate faster than the ministers is currently doing useful work. And as long as he's doing useful work, Yuhana will be watching. She left. Silently. Just as she had come. Ji-yoon lay on the mat. His heart beat steadily, 62 beats per minute. But inside, the register was ablaze. Yuhana knows. She hasn't proven it, but she knows. And she decided not to interfere for now. As long as he is useful. As long as his actions are directed against the House of Cho. As long as he works in the interests of the empire. This is not an alliance. It is a tacit truce. She'd given him a longer leash, but the leash was still there. At any moment, she can yank it. In the morning, Ji-young returned to his laundry. His hands in lie. His head in the registry. Yuhana is watching. This changes the dynamic. Now he has a window of opportunity. She won't interfere, but she won't help either. She waits. She watches. She assesses. A professional. He can act more boldly. On the 16th day, he found a draft order in the lining of the robe worn by a female official at the Office of Appointments, ordering the transfer of 3 officers from the Songsan garrison to the capital's guard. The transfer was framed as a promotion, but these 3 officers were company commanders. Without them, the Songsan garrison would lose its mid-level command structure. 3,000 soldiers without company commanders. On the eve of winter, when the Hungus traditionally raid the border, the Cho family is pulling commanders out of the northern fortresses, methodically, one by one, 2 at a time, through transfers, through promotions, so that each individual order looks routine. But taken together, the northern border 3 months will be left without experienced officers. When the Hungus strike, there will be no one to command the defense. Ji-young rolled up the draft and put it back in the lining. This move by the House of Cho is more dangerous than outright theft. Money can be returned. Dead commanders cannot. He needs to stop the transfers. But how? The order has already been signed by Kong Appointments Bureau. It will go for approval to the Military Council. From there, it will go to Grand Strategist Baek Yoon-sol. Rank 8. If Baek Yoon-sol sees the order, she can block it. She's a military officer. She'll understand what it means to lose 3 company commanders on the eve of winter. But will she see it? Hundreds of orders pass across her desk every week. 3 orders will get lost in the flood. Unless someone highlights them, sets them apart from the rest, places them on top of the stack. Ji-yoon has mapped out the route. Im-sol A. She's a captain in the guard. Rank 4. She has no direct access to Baek Yoon-sol. But she does have access to the military council on the 4th floor. She can slip a note into the folder of orders awaiting approval. An anonymous note. 3 names, 3 transfers. 1 word. Weakening. Baek Yoon-sol will read it. She'll understand. She'll block it. But how to get the information to Im-sol-ae? Direct contact is impossible. She's rank 4. He's rank 0. Through Miho. Miho is rank 3. She can talk to Im-sol-ae. But contact between Miho and Ji-young is now difficult. He's in the laundry room. She's on the 3rd floor. An entire wing separates them. A laundry basket. In the morning, he'll take the laundry to the 3rd floor. He'll leave a note in the stack of sheets for the inspector's office. Miho will pick up the laundry. She'll find the note. She'll pass it on to Im-sol-ae. It's a long chain. 3 links. Each link is a risk. But there's no other way. That night, he wrote on a scrap of fabric with charcoal. Sonsan. 3 company commanders. Transfer to the capital. The garrison has been decapitated. Stop it. In the morning, he slipped the scrap between the sheets. He carried the basket up to the 3rd floor. He arranged the laundry in the inspectorate's closet. The scrap lay between 2 sheets marked for Miho's desk. He went back downstairs. He waited. On the 18th day, Chang Bo-gyu left a note on the mat. It said that Im-sol-ae had submitted a report to the military council requesting a review of 3 transfers from the Songsan garrison. It said the report had landed on Baek Yoon-sol's desk. It said Baek Yoon-sol had read it. In silence. Then she summoned the head of the appointments office and questioned her for 40 minutes. The head of the office came out as white as a sheet. The transfers were frozen. It worked. The 3 commanders remain in Sonsan. The garrison retains its command structure. The northern border has 1 fewer crack. Insight points. Plus 300. Total 1,800. Ji-young burned the note. He stood up from the mat. He went to do the laundry, his hands in lie, his head in the register. But on the 19th day, the Che house replied. Che Soryeon summoned all the slaves of the men's wing to formation. The inner courtyard. The hour of the dragon. The sun was blinding. 43 slaves stood in a line. Soryeon stood before them in her ceremonial robe. Her face was calm. A faint smile played on her lips. She said that a rat had taken up residence in the men's wing. She said that someone was spreading rumors about her expenses. She said that rumors were a form of treason. And treason is punished. She snapped her fingers. 2 guards dragged Mo out of the ranks. Chen 4, 1-2. 22 years old. That very same quiet, dim-witted guy next to whom Ji-young had let slip that remark about the stink. Mo was on his knees, shaking. His face was gray. Soren said that Mo had been caught spreading slander, that the punishment was 20 strokes, that if anyone else wanted to talk about the mistress's expenses, they should watch closely. A guard raised her stick. The first blow landed across his back. Mo began. The second. The third. After the 5th, he stopped screaming. After the 10th, he went limp. After the 15th, blood soaked through his shirt. 20. Mo lay motionless on the stones of the courtyard. Alive, but broken. Ji-young stood in formation and watched. His face was blank. His eyes were dry. His fists were clenched so tightly that his fingernails dug into his palms. He had done it. He had let that remark slip near Mo. He knew Mo would spread the rumor. He didn't know that Soryeon would beat him. No, he knew. The registry could have foreseen this, but it didn't. Because it didn't want to. Because it considered Mo a disposable asset. Just as in his past life, he'd considered one-day agents expendable. Mo isn't an agent. Mo is a 22-year-old slave who liked to talk. And now he's lying in a pool of blood because Ji-young used him as a tool. That's the price. The first real price. Not his own pain. Someone else's. That evening, he went to Mo's little room. Mo was lying face down on a mat. His back was wrapped in dirty rags. Ji-young brought water, clean rags, ointment he'd stolen from the utility closet. He treated the wounds in silence. Mo sobbed. He didn't ask why. He didn't ask who. Ji Yong changed the rags and counted. 20 blows. Mo's back. A necklace worth 800 liang. 47% annual interest. A new item was added to Lin Jiao's debt. 20 blows with a stick on someone else's back. Soryon will pay for each one. Mo lay on the mat for 4 days. On the 5th day, he got up. His back had healed crookedly. He walked hunched over and no longer spoke to anyone. Ji Yong saw him in the dining hall. Mo sat alone. He ate in silence. His eyes were empty, not from stupidity, but from fear. The kind of fear that kills something inside you forever. Ji Yong turned away and counted. Soryon had shown the entire men's wing what happens for a single unnecessary word. Not a single slave would open their mouth now. Not a single one would pass on a whisper. Not a single one would drop a rag at someone else's table. She had silenced the wing. But in doing so, she had created a problem for herself. K. Informant Shu 308. He had seen Mo beaten for rumors that the entire table had heard. K was sitting 2 seats away from Mo. He too had heard about the incense. He too could have ended up on his knees. But he didn't. Because Soryon chose Mo and not him. Because K is her man. And now all 42 slaves know that K is a snitch. Because it wasn't him who got beaten. The logic of the slave barracks is simple. If the one next to you got beaten but you didn't, it means you ratted them out. K became an outcast overnight. They stopped feeding him from the communal pot. They tossed rotten fish onto his mat. They spat on his back twice. K came to see Ji Yun on the 21st day, at night. He stood in the doorway of the tiny room, trembling. His gaunt face was wet with tears. He whispered that they would kill him, that the slaves would beat him to death in his sleep, that Soryon wouldn't protect him because she no longer needed him, that he would tell everything he knew, about everyone. He just wanted Ji Yong to tell the others that Ke isn't to blame. Ji Yong remained silent. He looked at Ke, not with contempt, not with pity, with calculation. Ke knows Soryon's schedule. He knows who visits her, when, why. He knows where she keeps her documents. He knows the combination to the lock on her personal chest. For 3 years, he cleaned her rooms and memorized everything. Not because he's smart, because a slave's survival depends on knowing his mistress's habits. Ji Yong nodded, once. Ke exhaled. He sat down on the floor and began to speak. Soryon receives guests every 3rd evening, 2 women, one from the Office of Appointments, the other from the Military Council. They drink wine behind a screen and speak quietly. Ke couldn't hear their words, but he saw the scrolls. Soryon showed them scrolls bearing the red seal of the Che house, and they nodded. A chest. In Soryon's bedroom, under the bed. A lock with a 4-digit code, 7319. Kay saw her dial the code 3 times. Always the same combination. Scrolls in the chest. Many. Soryon rereads them at night by candlelight. Ji Yun listened, and the register absorbed every word. 7319. A chest. Scrolls with a red seal. The Office of Appointments. The Military Council. 2 protégés of the Cho household in key offices. Soryon isn't just a cruel mistress of the men's wing. She's a coordinator. A liaison between Cho Banhee's mother and the operatives in the palace. Kay fell silent. Ji Yong raised his hand. He placed Kay's palm on his shoulder. A single gesture. That was it. Kay nodded and left. In the morning, Ji Yun was carrying laundry to the 4th floor. In the corridor of the military wing, he saw Im Sol A. She was standing by the window, looking north. Her face was stern. Her hand rested on the hilt of her sword. He walked past her. He laid out the laundry. On his way back, he dropped a scrap of cloth at her feet. The names of 2 of Cho's protégés in the Office of Appointments and the Military Council. Im Sol A didn't look down. She didn't bend over. But when Ji Yong turned around at the stairs, the scrap had already vanished. On the 22nd day, something happened that turned the tables. Mi Ho rushed into the 3rd floor office, pale. Jang Bo-gyu saw her and relayed the news. Miho found a letter in the archives, an old one, from 2 months ago, addressed to the Empress personally, bearing the seal of the Northern Army. The commander of the Tibet garrison requests an audience for an urgent report on the situation at the border. He requests an inspection. He requests provisions and pay. The letter is marked urgent, but the envelope bears the stamp of the third-floor office. Received, registered, forwarded. Forwarded to whom? Not to the Empress. A forwarding stamp. The letter went to the Internal Security Office, and from there to the archives. No reply. No resolution. Someone intercepted the urgent letter from the commander of the Northern Fortress and buried it in the archives. Commander Thebek called for help 2 months ago. No one came. The Empress doesn't even know. Ji Yong received a note from Jang Bo-gyu and lay down on the mat. The registry launched a simulation. Who controls the forwarding of incoming correspondence on the third floor? Incoming Documents Registration Office.
The office manager.
He recalled the name from a scrap of the bribery list found in the search. Hong Se-byul, rank 3. That very same nervous clerk with trembling fingers who stamped the White Crane's fake license. She's also the one who reroutes incoming letters. She's Choi's protege. The Choi family didn't just steal money and buy off generals. They intercepted information flows. The Empress doesn't know that the North is burning because letters from the North never reach her. Brilliant. Terrifying. Professional. Someone in the House of Cho understands information warfare at a level Ji Yoon never expected to see in this world. Cho Ban-hee, rank 8, 5,600 points. She doesn't just steal. She's building a system of control. She's cutting the Empress off from reality, layer by layer. When the time comes for the coup, the Empress will find herself alone in a tower of lies, without a single reliable report, without a single loyal general, without a single honest official by her side. And the House of Cho will simply walk through the open doors. Ji Yoon sat down on the mat. His hands were on his knees. His eyes were closed. The ledger glowed red. This wasn't just a conspiracy, it was a siege. A quiet, methodical siege of the throne from within. And it hadn't been going on for months. Years. Perhaps a decade. Cho Bang-hee was playing a long game, and she had almost won. He needed to break through the blockade. One letter must reach the Empress. A real letter with real figures, directly, bypassing all the offices, bypassing all of Cho's protégés. He knew of only one channel that led to the 9th floor, bypassing the bureaucracy. Yu Hana, head of the secret chancellery, rank 7. She reports directly to the Empress. Her reports land on Sohui's desk without intermediaries. But Yu Hana is watching. She isn't helping. She said she'd keep an eye on him as long as he's useful. Using her as a courier means revealing his hand, showing that he knows about the blockade. It would reveal the scope of what he sees. Yu Hana will realize that his analytical ability isn't rank 1, or rank 3, or even rank 5. She'll realize that the slave in the laundry room sees the entire empire. This will either open the door, or shut it forever. Ji Yong ran through 3 scenarios. All 3 pointed to the same thing. It's time. The risk is necessary.
Because without intervention.
In 4 months, the Cho household will complete its preparations. Honggu will be struck at her most vulnerable border. The empire will lose the north. The Empress will fall. Millions will perish. And Yoon Mi-ho will be hanged as an accomplice to an unknown conspiracy. The necklace worth 800 liang. No, this isn't about the necklace now. This is about the empire. He didn't sleep that night. He wrote, on a scrap of cloth with charcoal, in small handwriting. Every word carefully chosen. Every figure from the register, the White Crane, 1,140,000 liang. Caravans to the north, 10 trips. Bribing the garrisons, intercepting incoming correspondence via Hong Se-byul. Withdrawal of commanders from Sonsan. Sale of provincial posts. List of Cho's protégés in key administrative offices. All on a single scrap of fabric. Concise, accurate, no frills. He rolled up the cloth. hid it in his sleeve. In the morning, he carried the laundry upstairs. Second floor, third, fourth. On the fourth floor, he didn't turn toward the linen closet. He walked to the end of the hallway. There was a door there. Behind the door was a staircase to the fifth floor. He not go.
A place off-limits to a slave with 1,100 points. But Chang Bo-gyu had said that on the fifth floor, in the right wing, there was a room belonging to the secret chancellery. And every morning at the hour of the snake, Yu-han drinks tea alone before starting work. Ji-yoon stood in front of the door to the fifth floor, a basket of laundry in his hands, a brand on his wrist. Rank 0. Beyond that door lay a territory where his very presence meant death. A slave on the fifth floor without an escort. Execution without trial. He opened the door and entered. The fifth floor corridor was empty. The hour of the snake. The officials hadn't arrived yet. A guard stands by the stairs leading to the upper floors. 20 steps to the right wing. He covered them in 8 seconds. A door bearing the seal of the secret chancellery, locked. He placed a rolled-up scrap of cloth on the threshold, turned around, 20 steps back. The door to the fourth floor, the basket in his hands. The laundry is in place. He went back downstairs. His breathing is steady. Pulse 78. Slightly above normal. 20 seconds on the fifth floor. 20 seconds between life and death. Now to wait. The glasses of insight. Plus 400 for compiling a full analytical report on the Cho House conspiracy. Total, 2,200. A necklace for 800 leon. 47% annual interest. The debt is growing. But right now the counter is counting something else. 4 months. That's all the empire has left. And the scrap of fabric on Yuhana's doorstep is the first move in a game for which he could pay with his head. Yuhana read the report. Ji-yoon found out about it 2 days later. Not from Jang Bo-gyu, not from Mi-ho. He realized it from the way the palace had changed. On the 24th day, 3 agents from the secret chancellery appeared at the incoming documents registration office. They did not arrest Hong Se-byul. They sat down at adjacent desks and began checking the registration logs. Quietly, methodically. Every entry from the past year. Hong Se-byul turned pale but continued working. Her fingers trembled more than usual. That same day, 2 agents arrived at the appointments office, and 2 at the military council. Yu-han didn't beat around the bush. She launched an investigation into all the points that Ji-yoon had indicated in his report. Simultaneously, 6 agents across 3 offices. The Cho household couldn't plug all the holes at once. Cho So-ryeon found out by evening. Jang Bo-gyu saw her rush into her chambers and slam the door shut. An hour later, a maid emerged from the chambers with a sealed letter and toward the palace gates. A letter to her mother, Choi Ban-hee. So-ryeon was calling for help. Ji-yoon was doing laundry and smiling into the soapy water. Yu-ha-na received his report. She began to act. Not openly, not through arrest. Through pressure. Clever. Professional. She's weaving a web of investigations that will make the Cho house squirm. Plugging one hole only to open another. Panic. And panic leads to mistakes. But Cho Ban-hee is rank 8. 5,600 points. She's not the type to panic. She'll respond. On the 26th day, the response arrived. Cho Ban-hee arrived at the palace in person. She usually appeared once a month at the Council of the 6 Houses meeting. This time she came unannounced. Accompanied by 20 personal guards in the black armor of the Cho house, she went up to the 8th floor. She spent 4 hours there. She left. She went down to the 3rd floor. She walked through the offices. Every female official stood up at her appearance. Rank 8. The second highest rank in the empire. She walked past the agents of the secret chancellery without so much as a glance. She wasn't nervous. She was demonstrating her authority. As if to say, I'm here. As if to say, my people are everywhere. As if to say, check whatever you want. You won't find a thing. After her mother's visit, Soryeon left the chambers calm, smiling. She walked through the men's wing. She stopped by the laundry room. She looked at Ji-young. He was standing knee-deep in water, his head bowed. Soryeon said softly, These inspections are ridiculous. They explained to the Empress that it was a misunderstanding. They said the agents would be removed by the end of the week. She left. Ji-young didn't raise his head, but the registry recorded every word. They explained it to the Empress. Who explained it? Chae Ban-hee spent 4 hours on the 8th floor. The 8th floor is the Council of Highest Strategies. That's where the 4 rank 8 officials and the Empress's secretariat hold their meetings. Ban-hee didn't go to see the Empress. She went to the council. She convinced the other rank 8s that the secret chancellery's investigations were a political attack on the Cho house. She turned the situation on its head. The victim became the aggressor. The accused became the accuser. Ji-yoon stood in the soapy water and felt the floorboards sway beneath his feet. Cho Ban-hee repelled the attack in 2 days. She has enough influence in the council to block any investigation. Yu-han is a rank 7. Cho Ban-hee is a rank 8. In a direct clash of ranks, Yu-hana loses. The only one who can override rank 8 is rank 9, the Empress. But the Empress doesn't know, because the information blackout is still in effect, because the 4 hours Ban-hee spent on the 8th floor were spent not on explanations, but on maintaining control. She verified that all filters were in place, that incoming emails were still being redirected, that the reports were still polished. A dead end. No, not a dead end. Ji-yoon ran a simulation. 3 scenarios. First, a head-on attack. Transmit all data directly to the Empress, bypassing all bureaucracy. How? The 9th floor. Security. The seal of silence. Physically impossible for a slave. Second, escalation through an external channel. Leaking data outside the palace. Newspapers. Guilds. Foreign ambassadors. Information that cannot be hushed up internally leaks out. Dangerous. Unpredictable. Could harm the empire more than it helps. Third, frame the Cho house. Don't prove their guilt. Provoke an action that proves their guilt on its own. Force them to make a mistake in front of everyone. Third, always the third option. The best trap is the one the victim walks into willingly. He needs to find leverage, something that will force Cho Ban-hee or Soryeon to commit an overt act that cannot be explained away as innocent. He found that leverage on the 27th day, in the pocket of Soryeon's freshly laundered robe. She had forgotten to check the secret pocket again, or perhaps she hadn't forgotten. Or maybe she assumed the laundry worker couldn't read. A note, written in Cho Ban-hee. Ji-yoon recognized the handwriting from a draft letter he'd found 2 weeks earlier. The text. It said the letter for Yeon Da-hee had been delivered. It said Commander Hamgwan had confirmed her readiness to receive the convoy on the 12th of next month. It said the convoy was carrying weapons for the first stage. It said that after receiving them, Yeon Da-hee will announce military exercises and withdraw the garrison from the fortress for 3 days. It says that during those 3 days, the pass will remain open. A convoy carrying weapons. The Hamgwan garrison leaves the fortress. The pass is open for 3 days. On the 12th of next month. 18 days from now. This isn't preparation for a coup. It's preparation for an invasion. The Choi clan is opening the northern pass for Honggu. Literally, physically. 3 days without a garrison. Honggu's horde passes through the pass. It ravages the northern provinces. The Empress throws all her forces into the north. Meanwhile, the House of Cho will seize the capital. Date. Location. The traitor's name. The convoy. All in a single note. Ji-yoon put the note back in his pocket. He sewed up the lining. His hands didn't tremble, but his head was on fire. 18 days. He has 18 days to stop the invasion that will sweep away the loyal provinces and kill tens of thousands. No, he can't stop the invasion. He must stop the betrayal. Yeon Da-hee, Commander Hamgwan. If she doesn't withdraw the garrison, the pass is closed. If the pass is closed, they won't get past Honggu. If the Honggu cannot pass, the Cho house loses a key element of its plan. But he cannot show the note to anyone directly. It's in Soryeon's robe pocket. If he takes it, Soryeon will notice it's missing and warn her mother. If he relays the contents to anyone, It will be the word of a rank 0 slave against the word of the great house, rank 8. He needs someone to see this note with their own eyes, someone with a high enough rank for them to be believed. Someone who has the authority to search Soryan's personal belongings. That person is Sol A, rank 4, captain of the guard. She can obtain a search warrant from the Office of Internal Investigations, but a search warrant for the chambers of a great house daughter would be a political earthquake. Only someone of rank 7 or higher can issue such a warrant. Yu Hana. She is the only one who can issue a warrant and conduct a search without approval from the High Strategy Council. The secret office has such authority. But Yu Hana has just been reprimanded by Ban He through the council. She's playing it safe right now. She won't act again without ironclad grounds. He needs to give her those grounds. Not words, not numbers, not an anonymous report on a scrap of cloth. Physical evidence. A note in her pocket. In Ban He's handwriting. With Yan Da-hee's name. With a date. With a description of the convoy. If Yu Ha-na personally discovers this note in Soryan's chambers, it will be proof of treason. Not financial, not bureaucratic. Military treason. Not even the Supreme Strategy Council could sweep something like this under the rug. Ji-yoon closed his eyes and ran through the scenario in his mind. Yu Ha-na must search Soryan's chambers, on her own initiative, not at the suggestion of a slave. How to get the head of the secret chancellery, a rank 7 official, to personally search the chambers of the daughter of the great house, a rank 5 official. The answer came in 12 seconds. Insight points. Plus 300 for uncovering the invasion plan. Total, 2,500. A necklace for 800 liang. Now is not the time for a necklace. In 18 days, the pass will either be closed or the empire will lose the north. And far away on the northern border, Hamguan garrison commander Yan Da-hee was sharpening her blades and waiting for the convoy that would turn her from a soldier into a traitor. The plan was simple. Like all good plans, Ji-young hadn't slept for 2 nights. He was mapping out a plan in his head. He was going through the options one by one, weeding them out, leaving only one path. Yu Ha-na wouldn't search Soryang's chambers based on a slave's word alone, but she would go if she saw grounds for it with her own eyes. The evidence must come into her field of vision naturally, not planted, not staged, but discovered in the course of the investigation she's already conducting. Yu Ha-na is keeping watch on the laundry room, on him, and on the palace. Her people are watching. That means they see who comes to see Soryan, who leaves, what they're carrying. But they can't see what's in their pockets. They can't see what's in the chest with the code 7319. For Yu Ha-na to open the chest, she must receive a signal that the chest is important. Not from Ji-yoon, from Soryan herself. Make Soryan open the chest in front of a witness. Or make her so nervous about the chest that Yu Ha notices it. Day 28. Ji-young began to act. First move, through K. The former informant was now working for him. Ji-young whispered 4 words to him. He told him to tell Soryan that agents from the secret chancellery had asked the laundresses about her laundry. A lie. No one had asked anything. But Soryan didn't know that. Kay reported back that evening. Soryan turned pale. Jang Bo-gyu saw her lock herself in her bedroom. The candles burned until dawn. She was checking the chest, counting the scrolls, hiding something. Move 2. On the morning of the 29th, Ji-young slipped a scrap of cloth into Soryan's laundry basket. On it was a single word written in a strange, unfamiliar hand. 7319. The chest's code. Just 4 digits. No signature. No context. Soryan will find this scrap when she checks the laundry before sending it to the laundromat. She's been checking every time ever since she realized the laundromat isn't a blind spot. She'll see her code, written by someone else's hand. Someone knows the code. Someone. Not Ji-young, not Kay, not Miho. A stranger. Unfamiliar handwriting. That means someone from outside is getting close to the chest. Maybe an agent from the secret chancellery. Maybe a spy from another house. Soryan will do one of 2 things. Either she'll change the code and put her mind at ease, or she'll start hiding the chest's contents in a safer place. The registry gave the second option an 80% probability, because changing the code isn't enough. If someone knows the code, that means someone was in the bedroom. That means the chest has been compromised. The scrolls need to be moved. Where? Soryan has few options. Her chambers, the study on the third floor, her private storeroom in the service wing, the storeroom, the service wing, near the laundry room, near Ji-young's quarters. But that's not the point. The point is that when moving the scrolls, Soryan will have to carry them down the hallway. And Yu-hana's eyes are watching the hallways. Agents of the secret chancellery who monitor the palace after inspections. If Soryan drags a stack of scrolls from her bedroom to the storeroom at night, it's suspicious. If she carries them herself, not trusting the maids, it's doubly suspicious. Yu-hana will see. Yu-hana will figure it out. Yu-hana will want to know what's in those scrolls. The third move. The riskiest one. On the night of Ji's, Yoon must arrive at the storeroom before Soryan. He must leave the storeroom door unlocked. No, not like that. He must ensure that Yu-hana or her agent is nearby at the exact moment Soryan is putting the scrolls into the storeroom. A chance encounter. A patrol round. An agent from the secret chancellery walks through the service wing at the middle of the night as part of heightened security following recent events. He sees Soryan. He sees the scrolls. He reports to Yu-hana. Yu-hana searches the storeroom. She finds the scrolls. She reads Banhee's note. The convoy. Yon Da-hee. The mountain pass. The 12th. Treason. But for that to happen, the secret bureau agent must be in the service wing on exactly the right night at exactly the right hour. How? Ji-yoon lay on a mat and thought. Yu-hana is smart. If I hint too directly, she'll suspect manipulation. If I'm too subtle, she'll miss it. A perfect balance was needed. On the morning of the 29th, he carried the laundry up to the 5th floor. The second time in his life. The second time in the realm of death. But now he knew the patrol schedule for the 5th floor. Jang Bo-gyu had drawn up a map for him. Every 12 minutes. The window at 4 minutes past. He left a scrap of fabric by Yu-hana's door. The same threshold. The same method. The message. Service wing. Storage room. Third door on the left. The night of the 30th. No recipient. No signature. Just the place. Just the time. Yu-hana would decide for herself what to do with this information. If she came, it meant she trusted his information. If she didn't come, it meant he'd wasted 2 days and needed a new plan. He returned to the laundry room. He waited. On the evening of the 29th day, Soryan found a scrap of paper with a code in the laundry basket. Jang Bo-gyu watched from around the corner as she stood in the hallway, staring at the 4 digits. Her hands were shaking. For the first time ever, Chae Soryan, rank 5, 2,800 insight points, was trembling with fear. Someone knew the code. Someone had been in her bedroom. Someone had seen the contents of the chest. Her mother's note, the names, the dates, the convoy. Yon Da-hee. If this fell into the Empress's hands? No, don't think about it. Act. Soryan summoned 2 guards and ordered them to move the contents of the chest to her private storeroom in the service wing. Immediately. At night. Quietly. The night of the 30th day. Ji-yoon lay on a mat and counted. The hour of the rat. Soryan would go to the storeroom. If Yu-han sent an agent or comes herself, in an hour he'll know whether it worked or not. Footsteps in the hallway. Soryan. 2 female guards. Heavy breathing. They're carrying something. They passed by the storeroom. The scent of sandalwood incense. The storeroom door. A creak. Voices. Quiet. Soryan's orders. Commotion. Silence. Footsteps heading back. The door. The lock. They're gone. Ji-yoon lay there and waited. 20 minutes passed. 30. Silence. An hour. No one. Yu-han hadn't come. His heart didn't flutter. He calculated the odds. 60% chance of success.
That meant 40% chance of failure. The 40% had come to pass. He needed a backup plan. No, wait. Until morning. On the morning of the 31st day, Jang Bo-gyu left a note. It said a shadow had been seen in the service wing during the night.
It said the lock on the third storage room on the left had been open that morning. It said 2 people had searched the storeroom. It said one of them was Yu Ha-na. Ji-yoon read it 3 times. The lock was open. The storeroom had been searched. Yu Ha-na had come. Not at a good time, rats. Later. In the pre-dawn hours. When Sodeon had left. When the hallway was empty. She didn't come while Sodeon was there. She waited. Because she didn't need testimony about Sodeon's behavior. She needed the contents of the storeroom. The documents. Ban Hee's note. Yu Ha-na works quietly, as befits the head of the secret chancellery. Now the note about the weapons convoy for Yeon Da-hee is in Yu Ha-na's hands. Now Yu Ha-na knows the date. She knows the location. She knows the traitor's name. And she knows that in 17 days, the northern pass will be open to Honggu. Ji-yoon burned the note. He closed his eyes. Plus 200 points for coordinating the operation. Total, 2,700. But points aren't important right now. What matters is what happens next. Yu Ha-na is rank 7. She can take action. She can stop the convoy. She can arrest Yeon Da-hee. She can report directly to the Empress, but she went to the chest in secret, without a warrant, without authorization. The evidence was obtained illegally. Under imperial law, such evidence is inadmissible in court. Yu Ha-na knows this. She won't take the note to the Empress. She won't be able to use it officially. But she knows now. And knowledge changes behavior. She'll start preparing for the 12th. She'll redeploy agents to the north. She'll step up surveillance on Hamgwon. And perhaps, she will turn to the only person who can act outside the law by right of blood. The Empress. Directly. Without evidence. On her word alone. A rank 7 appeals to a rank 9 with information that cannot be proven in court. Will Empress Yu Ha-na take their word for it? It depends on one thing, whether So Hui trusts his spy more than his ministers. Ji-young opened his eyes. He didn't know the answer. For the first time in 31 days, he didn't know what would happen next. The registry was silent. There wasn't enough data. The relationship between the Empress and the head of the secret chancellery was personal. It lay beyond numbers and threads. It was human. He stood up from the mat. He went to do the laundry. A necklace worth 800 lian. 47% annual interest. The interest is accruing. But right now, the necklace isn't on his mind. 17 days are on his mind. And somewhere on the 9th floor, Yu Han stands before the door to the Empress's chambers, deciding whether to enter or not. She decides alone, without hints, without scraps of fabric on the threshold. Alone. And far to the north, the Honggu horde stands at the foot of the mountains. 20,000 horsemen. Bonfires stretch to the horizon. They're waiting. They know the date. They know the pass will open. They've been told. Yu Han entered the Empress's chambers. Ji-young learned of this on the 32nd day, not from Chang Bo-gyu, from the palace itself. The palace had changed overnight. The guards on the staircases had doubled. Patrols switched to an 8-minute cycle instead of a 15-minute one. On the 4th floor, 2 rooms of the military council were closed on the 4th floor and did not open until noon. On the 5th floor, agents of the secret chancellery stopped walking alone, only in pairs. The Empress believed it. Or perhaps she didn't believe it but decided to check. It amounts to the same thing. Because in this case, checking means taking action. And action means the machine is running. Ji-young was doing laundry and tallying the changes, the number of patrols, the frequency of the changing of the guard, the direction of the courier's travel. 3 couriers left through the north gate this morning. On horseback, fast horses, traveling light, messengers heading north. The Empress had sent an order, or a reconnaissance mission, or both. 15 days until the 12th. The distance from the capital to the Hamgwon garrison is 8 days on horseback. A messenger could make it in 6 if he changes horses twice.
6 days there. That means the order will reach Hamguan 9 days before the appointed date. That's enough time. If the order gets through, if it isn't intercepted. The Cho family controls the post stations on the northern route. 3 out of 5 stations are funded by the Cho family. The station masters have been bribed. The Empress's messenger might not make it. Ji Yong ran a simulation. The probability of interception is 40%. That's high. Too high to risk tens of thousands of lives. He needs a second channel, a backup messenger taking a different route.
Not via the northern route, via the mountain trails, which are controlled by no one but smugglers and monks. Who knows the mountain trails to the north? Chang Bo-gyu, 40 years in the palace. He remembers everything, every door, every corridor, and every person who has ever come and gone. That evening, Ji Yong whispered a single word to the old man. Trails. Chang Bo-gyu didn't stop. That night, a note lay on the mat. Longer than usual. It said, a mountain trail through the Chirisan Pass. It said, a 4-day walk. It said, only one person in the palace knows it. It said, a former mountain guide who now serves as a gatekeeper at the western gate. It said, his name is Pyong Dal-su. It said he owed Chang Bo-gyu a favor for the incident with the stolen rice 12 years ago. It said that if the old man asked, Pyong Dal-su would go. Ji Yong burned the note. 4 days on foot. If Pyong Dal-su set out tomorrow, he would arrive at Hamguan 11 days before the deadline. He used to be the Empress's messenger. He'll take a trail that the Che clan doesn't control. But what will he carry? Not an order from the Empress. Ji Yun doesn't have a rank 9 seal. He has no authority. He doesn't even have the right to speak.
But he doesn't need to order Yeon Da-hee to stop. He needs her to be afraid. One letter is enough. An anonymous one, with details known only to her and Choi Ban-hee. The date of the convoy, the number of weapons, the exercise plan, the liaison's name. If Yeon Da-hee receives an anonymous letter listing everything she thought was a secret, she'll realize one thing. The conspiracy has been exposed. Someone knows. And if she goes through with it, she'll end up on the chopping block. A traitor who receives such a letter will do one of two things: flee or call off the operation and pretend she never planned anything. Both options shut down the operation. Ji Yong wrote the letter at night, not on fabric, on real paper he'd stolen from the archives during his last visit. In Choi Ban-hee's handwriting, which he'd memorized from 2 samples. A perfect copy. The registry had recorded every stroke, every pressure, every angle of the brush. The text of the letter was simple. It said the operation has been compromised. It said the secret chancellery knows the date. It said the convoy is cancelled. It said to destroy all traces. It said to wait for further instructions. Signed by Ban-hee. A forgery. Flawless. The seal. He doesn't have the Cho family seal, but he doesn't need the real one. He needed the seal that Yeon Da-hee had seen on Ban-hee's previous letters. He carved it out of a bar of soap in 20 minutes. The impression was in red ink. Not perfect, but good enough for the garrison commander, who would receive it in a panic and wouldn't examine it under a magnifying glass. On the morning of the 33rd day, Chang Bo-gyu handed the letter to Pyong Dal-su. The gatekeeper left through the western gate before dawn. 4 days along mountain trails. Ji Yun stood by a basin of soapy water, staring at his hands. Chapped. Calloused. With the brand Chen 417 on his right wrist. With these hands, he had just forged a letter from the great house of Cho and sent it over the mountain pass with the gatekeeper, who was walking along the smuggler's trail. If they catch Pyong Dal-su, if they find the letter, if they compare the handwriting, his tongue, then his head. The glasses of insight. Plus 300 for neutralizing the threat of a breach at the northern pass. Total, 3,000. 3 conditional ranks.
A slave with a rag and a brand.
The 33rd day in the palace. On the 34th day, Chud, Soryeon discovered that the storeroom was empty. Yuhana had taken the scrolls. All of them. Soryeon stood in the doorway of the empty storeroom and stared at the bare shelves. Chang Bo-gyu watched from the hallway. Soryeon's face was white.
then gray, then red. She turned and walked back to her room, at a brisk pace, almost running. An hour later, another messenger left the palace, bound for Cho Ban-hee. Soryon reports that the scrolls have been stolen, that the secret chancellery has conducted a search, that everything has been uncovered. The Cho household will find out in a day. Ban-hee learns that the plan involving the mountain pass is in jeopardy. She'll do one of two things: speed up the schedule, or switch to the backup plan. Ji-yoon knew. The Cho family has a backup plan. There always is. The register pointed in a direction but didn't provide details. There wasn't enough information. More is needed. They need Soryon's chest. It's empty now. But Soryon doesn't know that Ji-yoon knows the code. Nor does she know that the chest might not have been thoroughly searched. Perhaps the chest has a false bottom. Perhaps Yuhan took the scrolls but didn't find the hiding place. Kai. Ji-young whispered to him that evening. "The chest," he said. "Is there a false bottom?" Kai nodded. He'd seen it. 3 years ago, what was hiding something in the bottom of the chest? Not scrolls. Something small, flat, like a plate. A plate. What could it be? A seal. Cho Ban-hee's personal seal. If Soryon keeps her mother's seal in a secret compartment of the chest, that means she has the authority to affix the Cho family seal to documents without Ban-hee's presence. That means some of the orders that arrive bearing Ban-hee's seal were actually written by Soryon. That means Soryon isn't just a coordinator. She's a co-conspirator, with signing authority. That changes everything. If the Empress finds out that the daughter of a rank 5 great house possesses an unauthorized copy of a rank 8 ancestral seal, it will be a devastating blow. A rank 8 seal in the hands of a rank 5 is a forgery of state authority. A capital offense. Execution for the entire family. Ji-yoon needs that plate. Physically, in her hands. Not a photograph in the registry, the actual item. He knows the code. 7319. He knows the chest is in Soryon's bedroom. He knows Soryon's schedule from Ke. Every third evening she receives guests until the hour of the rat. The bedroom is empty from the hour of the snake until the hour of the rat. The window opens at 4 o'clock. But Soryon's bedroom is on the 3rd floor. The women's wing. Security. Patrols. No cameras, but there's a guard at every staircase. A male slave in the women's wing at night is a death sentence without trial. Faster than the seal of silence. He needs a guide. Jang Bol-gyu. The old man knows the secret passages. 40 years. Every crack. Every forgotten corridor. That night, Ji-young whispered. "Soryon's bedroom," he said. "A secret passage," he added. Jang Bol-gyu was silent for 10 seconds. Then he replied quietly. He said there is one. He said an old ventilation shaft from the laundry room basement leads to the wall between the 3rd floor bedrooms. He said the entrance is past the 3rd jar on the right. He said the slab slides if you press the left edge. Ji-young nodded. A necklace worth 800 liang. 47% annual interest. But now wasn't the time to think about the necklace. 14 days until the 12th. Pyeongdal-su was somewhere on a mountain trail. Yuhana was with the stolen scrolls. Ban-hee with a messenger from his daughter. The empire hangs in the balance. And he'll crawl into the ventilation shaft from the laundry room basement to steal the seal from the double-bottomed chest. A rank 0 slave. 3,000 points. A brand on his wrist. Soap under his fingernails. He smiled in the darkness. Subtly, quickly. His 3rd smile in 34 days. The ventilation shaft was narrow. His shoulders scraped against the stone on both sides. Complete darkness. The air was dry and warm. It smelled of old dust and something Swedish. Rat droppings. Ji-young crawled on all fours, counting the turns. Chang Bo-gyu had described the route. Straight ahead to the first fork. Take the left passage. 20 steps. Up an incline. Left again. A wall with a vent. Behind the vent was Soryon's bedroom. He counted his steps with his knees. 18, 19, 20. Upward. The stone began to slope. He braced himself with his palms and pulled himself up. His knees burned from rubbing against the rough floor.
12 minutes.
He had crawled for 12 minutes from the slab behind the third jar to the bedroom wall. The vent. A square the size of a palm, stuffed with cloth from the inside. He pulled the cloth out slowly, silently. Light. Dim. An oil lamp on a small table in the corner of the bedroom. Soren was gone. The hour of the snake. Receiving guests. Kay confirmed it that morning. The bedroom was empty. Ji-young slipped his hand through the vent. He found a bracket. The stove shifted. The opening was wide enough for his body. He squeezed into the bedroom and stood up. For the first time in 35 days, he stood at full height in a room with furniture and light. Silk pillows. A screen with cranes. A small table made of black wood. The scent of sandalwood incense. The very same kind. For 3,000 liang from the men's wing maintenance fund. From the fund that was supposed to feed and clothe him and 42 other slaves. He didn't dwell on those thoughts. A chest. Under the bed. He dropped to his knees, pulled out the chest. Lacquered wood, brass corners. A lock with little wheels. 7, 3, 1, 9. Click. The lid opened. Empty. Yuhana had taken everything, except the bottom. Ji-young ran his fingers over the wooden bottom. Smooth. Even. The seam was barely noticeable. He pressed the right corner. Nothing. The left. Nothing. The center. Click. The bottom rose half a centimeter. He hooked it with his fingernail. He pulled. The false bottom opened. Inside lay a jade plaque the size of a palm. The seal of the Che House. The ancestral seal. The one that appears on every official document of the Great House. The one that grants the right to sign orders on behalf of Che Ban-hee, rank 8. And next to the seal lay a scroll. Thin, tied with black thread. Yuhan hadn't found it. Ji-yoon unrolled the scroll. The registry absorbed the text in 4 seconds. A list. Names. Positions. Amounts. But not the names he'd seen before. Not mid-level officials. Not garrison commanders. Members of the Supreme Strategy Council, 8th floor. 3 names out of 4 of rank 8. Grand Strategist Baek Yoon-sol. Next to her name was not a monetary symbol, there was a question mark. And a handwritten note from Soryeon, meaning she won't give in, meaning we need another lever, meaning her daughter. Head of the Imperial Court, Moon Hae-won. Amount, 50,000 ryang annually. Note, it says she's been loyal since her 3rd year. High Priestess Ryu Seonghwa. Amount, 30,000 ryang plus land in Hoso Province. Note, it says she's wavering but will go along with the majority. 3 out of 4 rank 8 officials. 2 have been bought off. 1 won't budge, but she's being blackmailed through her daughter. The 4th is Che Ban-hee herself. The Council of High Strategies is in the pocket of the Che House. That's why Ban-hee blocked Yuhana's audit on the 8th floor in 4 hours. Not because she convinced them, because she bought them off. Because the council belongs to her. The only one resisting is Baek Yoon-sol, and the Che family is pressuring her through her daughter. Baek Yoon-sol. The one who coordinated the parallel investigation. The one whose voice Ji-yoon heard behind the door on the 4th floor. She isn't just investigating. She's resisting the pressure from the house of Che at the very top. Alone. Against 3. Ji-yoon rolled up the scroll. Put it back. Closed the false bottom. Locked the chest. Shoved it under the bed. He took the seal. It lay in the palm of his hand. Heavy. Jade. Smooth. Bearing the Che crest. This plaque is worth more than all the gold in the men's wing's treasury. This plaque is evidence. An unauthorized copy of the Great House's ancestral seal in the daughter's chambers on the 3rd floor of the palace. Any court would accept this as grounds for a charge of forging government documents. He hid the seal in his sleeve. He returned to the air vent, squeezed through, pushed the grate back into place, stuffed it with cloth, crawled back. 12 minutes to the laundry room. He crawled out from behind the 3rd vat, shaked himself off. He lay down on the mat. The seal was under his head. His heart was beating at 75 beats per minute, almost normal. Now he had 2 weapons in his hands.
The Cho House seal, and knowledge of the council's composition. Who's been bought? Who's been blackmailed? Who's resisting? The goggles of insight. Plus 500 for infiltrating and obtaining critical data on the composition of the Council of Supreme Strategies. Total, 3,500. But the night isn't over yet. On his way back through the ventilation corridor, he heard voices. From the adjacent vent. The bedroom next to Soryon's room. Two voices. One was Soryon's.
The second he was hearing for the first time.
Low. Female. Cold. The voice said Ji-Yun's name. Not a number. A name. Han Ji-Yun. Soryon asked where the name came from. The voice replied. It said House Lin. It said bastard. It said sold out by his sister. It said the surname Han. It said Han is a problem. It said, does Soryon remember what her mother said about the surname Han? It said all boys with the surname Han must be destroyed. It said 200 years ago. It said blood. It said power. Silence. Then Soryon. It said he's just a slave. It said a half-wit. It said they'd checked him out. Rank 0, incapable of thought. A voice. The secret chancellery is looking for someone on the lower floors. A coincidence. A bastard with the surname Han appears in the palace. 3 days later, the Minister of Finance is arrested. A week later, transfers from Sonsan are blocked. 2 weeks later, the Chancellery inspects the storeroom. They say it's no coincidence. They say it's Han. The voice fell silent. Soryon was silent. Then quietly, they say if it's Han, he must be killed. They say not with sticks. They say quietly. With poison, they said. Tomorrow, they said.
Ji-Yun lay in the ventilation shaft, not breathing. They know his last name. They know what the surname Han means. 200 years, blood, power. They've been killing boys with that surname, all of them, 200 years. And tomorrow they'll come for him, with poison. He crawled toward the exit, faster. His knees were burning. The stone was scraping his skin. It didn't matter. Poison tomorrow. He had to get Yuhan's seal to him by tomorrow. Pass on the information about the council of Baek-Yun's soul. And disappear. Not from the palace. Out of the laundry room. Out of the storeroom. Out of Soryon's sight. Vanish. For just 1 day. Long enough for the poison not to find its target. A necklace worth 800 liang. 47%. The debt is growing. But first, he had to survive until tomorrow. The poison came with the morning rice. Ji-Yun didn't touch his bowl. He woke up an hour before the meal was served. He gathered everything of importance from the mat. The Cho House seal in one sleeve, a scrap of cloth with a list of the council's members in the other sleeve. He left the storeroom before dawn. Ke was sleeping against the wall of the hallway. Ji-Young touched him on the shoulder. Ke opened his eyes. Ji-Young gestured. Don't eat. Rice. Today. Ke turned pale. He understood. He nodded. Ji-Young went to the laundry room. He crawled into the ventilation shaft. Not towards Soryong's bedroom. The other way. Jang Bo-gyu had explained that the corridor branched off. The left passage led to the third-floor bedrooms. The right one went down, into the old basements, forgotten storerooms. The palace was 300 years old. The lower levels hadn't been used for the last 50 years. Darkness, dampness, rats. But not a single person. He spent the day there, lying on the cold stone in complete darkness. The register was working. The threads were burning. He calculated every move. Soryon will discover that his room is empty. She'll discover that he hasn't eaten any rice. She'll realize that he knows about the poison. She'll realize that someone warned him. Ke is under suspicion. No. Ke didn't know about the poison until morning. Ji-Young warned him after the decision was made. So Soryon will think that Ji-Young somehow found out on his own. This will intensify her fear. A slave who foresees poison is no ordinary slave. This confirms everything the voice said that night.
It's Han. Soryon will report this to her mother. Cho Ban-hee will make the decision. Not poison. Open extermination. Soldiers. A search.
A palace-wide manhunt for slave number 417. But an open manhunt requires a justification. What grounds are there for hunting down a slave? Escape. If 417 isn't at his post, he's a fugitive slave. Fugitive slaves are captured. The punishment for escape? Death, without trial. Any guard has the right to kill a fugitive slave on the spot. Ji-young lay in the basement, counting down the time. He has until evening. They'll announce the escape this evening. The search will begin in the morning. He needs to deliver the seal and the information before they find him. 2 recipients. The seal is going to Yu Han. The information about the council is going to Baek Yoon Sol. But he's in the basement. He can't make it to the 5th floor. He can't make it to the 4th. He can't even make it to the 1st. Every hallway is patrolled. Every staircase is guarded. His face is known. The brand on his wrist. The gray slave shirt. He needs someone else's hands. One last time. 2 people. Mi-ho, Im Sol-ah, or Jang Bo-gyu, the old man, whom no one notices, who is part of the walls. Ji-yoon made his way out of the basement through a ventilation shaft into the laundry room at the hour of the monkey. The laundry room is empty. Everyone is at dinner. He walked toward the exit. The hallway. Empty. A shadow by the wall. Jang Bo-gyu. The old man was standing there, waiting. He knew. How? It didn't matter. 40 years in the palace teach you to sense when trouble is in the air. Ji-young handed him the seal and a scrap of cloth. He whispered. The seal is for Yu Han, he said. The cloth is for Baek Yoon Sol, he said. Today, he said. Jang Bo-gyu took them. He hid them in the laundry basket. He looked at Ji-young for a long time, for the first time ever. Then he said quietly, I know who Ji-yoon is. I've known since the very first day. The ring, the surname, the eyes. 40 years ago, I saw a portrait of Han Mu-yeol in the locked archive on the 9th floor. The same eyes. I've been waiting 20 years. Ji-young froze. Jang Bo-gyu knew from the very first day, and he kept silent. And he helped. Not because Ji-young asked him to, because the old man had been waiting. 20 years, waiting for someone with the surname Han and Mu-yeol's eyes. He had been waiting for the return of the blood that had been cut out 200 years ago. The old man left with the basket. Ji-young stood in the empty hallway, alone. The brand burned. Not from pain, from something else. He had to disappear before morning. The ventilation shaft, the basements, darkness. He went back downstairs, lay down on the stone. He closed his eyes. At night, movement began upstairs. Footsteps, voices, torches, shouts. Slave 417 was reported missing. Cho So-ryong personally led the search. 20 female guards. The laundry room was turned upside down. The storeroom was searched. The kitchen wing was combed through. The wing was mobilized. 42 slaves stood in formation. Shu 417 was missing. So-ryong ordered a search of the basements. The female guards descended to the lower level. Torches, shadows, rats. Ji-yoon lay in a side passage behind a collapsed wall. He heard footsteps. He saw the light of the torches through cracks in the masonry. They passed within 3 steps of him. They didn't notice him. The collapsed wall looked like a dead end. Jang Bo-gyu knew every stone. He knew there was a niche behind that wall. Big enough for one body. The guards left. The torches went out. Darkness returned. Ji-young lay there, breathing. Quietly. Steadily. 62 breaths. Upstairs, So-ryong was yelling at the guards. At Kay. At everyone. The slave had vanished. Into the courtyard. How? Where? She didn't understand. She didn't know about the ventilation shaft. Didn't know about the old cellars. Didn't know that the palace she managed had a second face. Hidden. Ancient. Known only to those who had lived here long enough to become part of the stone. And on the 5th floor, in the secret chancellery,
Yuhan opened a basket of laundry. She found a seal, a jade one, bearing the Cho crest. She turned it over in her hands. She lifted the lamp. She looked at the impression. She compared it to the seal on the stolen scrolls. A match. A perfect one. An unauthorized copy. In her daughter's chambers. Proof. Real. Tangible. Irrefutable. Yuhan placed the seal on the table. She stood up. She left the room. And she went upstairs. To the 9th floor. To the Empress. On the 4th floor, in the office of the military wing, Baek-Yoon-sol unfolded a scrap of fabric she'd found in a stack of clean towels. She read it. Advice. Moon Hae-won, 50,000. Ryu Sung-hwa, 30,000 plus land. And next to her own name, a question mark, a lever. Her daughter. Baek-Yoon-sol read it twice. Then she folded the scrap of fabric. She tucked it into her breast pocket. Her face remained impassive, but her hand rested on the table, and her fingers clenched so tightly that her knuckles turned white. So that's how it is. Through her daughter. Fine. Now she knows. Meanwhile, down in the basement, Ji-young was counting points. Plus 400 for passing critical evidence to 2 key players. Total, 3,900. A necklace worth 800 liang. 47%. Somewhere in Lingjiao province, she sleeps in a carriage with a ring on her little finger. Unaware that the ring has been on its way to the capital in the hands of Im Sol-a for 3 days now. Unaware that her trading house is already being investigated by the Internal Affairs Bureau on a tip from Mi-ho. Unaware that 80,000 liang for her brother is the most expensive purchase of her life. The debt is growing. The Empress hadn't slept for 3 nights. Jinong found out about this when he emerged from the basement on the 37th day. Chang Bo-gyu was waiting at the entrance to the ventilation shaft. The old man's face was ashen with fatigue. He whispered rapidly. He said the palace was under siege. He said the Empress had convened an emergency meeting of the Supreme Strategy Council. He said Yuhan had presented the seal. He said Moon Hae-won turned pale and left the hall. They said Ryu Sung-hwa fell to her knees and began to repent. They said Baek-Yoon-sol stood up and uttered a single sentence. They said she demanded a tribunal against the Che family on charges of treason. They said Che Bang-hee demanded proof. Mal Yuhana placed scrolls from the Soryeon storeroom on the table. A note about the convoy, names, dates, and amounts. It is said that Ban-hee remained silent for 14 seconds. Then she stood up and said that it was a forgery. That the scrolls had been stolen and falsified. That the secret chancellery was waging a political attack against the House of Che on the orders of envious rivals. It is said that the Empress listened, in silence. Her face was impassive. They say the Empress then asked one thing. They say, where did the seal come from? They say Yuhan replied. They say, from the false bottom of the chest in Che Soryong's bedroom. They say the lock on the chest had the code 7319. They say the Empress looked at Ban-hee. They say she asked. They say she asked if Ban-hee knew that her daughter kept a copy of the family seal. They say Ban-hee remained silent. They say for 7 seconds. Then she said she didn't know. They say the Empress looked at Baek-Yoon-sol. They say Baek-Yoon-sol shook her head. They say it was a lie. They say because the seal was carved from jade from the same deposit as the original. They say the deposit that belongs personally to Che Ban-hee. They said only the head of the house himself could have commissioned such a seal. They said Ban-hee clenched her teeth and fell silent. They said the Empress ordered Yuhan to arrest Choi Soryeon. They say Ban-hee stood up and left the hall. They say her 20 female guards in black armor stood at the gate and wouldn't let the guards pass. They say Ban-hee sent another messenger. Mole outside the palace walls. Mole to whom, it is unknown. Ji-young listened, and the registrar drew up a map. Ban-hee hadn't given up. She had moved to open confrontation. 20 guards are not an army. It's a show of force. She's buying time. She's waiting for reinforcements. A messenger. To whom? To the Cho family's private army. The one she'd been building with the stolen million. The one she'd been arming with caravans heading north. The one waiting somewhere for orders.
300 swords, maybe more. If Ban He manages to bring them to the capital before the Empress mobilizes the palace guard, the coup will begin ahead of schedule. Not in 3 months, today, or tomorrow. Ji-yoon crawled out of the ventilation shaft. He stood up to his full height. He looked at Jang Bo-gyu. The old man was looking at him, waiting. Ji-yoon whispered, "Where's Im-sol-ah? Where's Mi-ho?" Jang Bo-gyu. Im-sol-ah has mobilized the palace guard, 200 soldiers. She's locked the gates. Mi-ho is in the office on the 3rd floor. He said she was sealing the archive so the Cho house wouldn't destroy the documents. They're taking action, without his orders, without his guidance, on their own. Because over the past month, he'd given them enough to see the big picture. Not completely, but enough. Mi-ho sees the financial side. Im-sol-a sees the military side. Baek-yoon-sol sees the strategic side. Yoo-hana sees the espionage side. And all 4 are acting simultaneously. Coordination without a coordinator. Because he created a common map for them. Each has their own piece, and the pieces have come together. But one element is missing. Ban He and her 300 blades. If they enter the capital, the palace guard won't hold out. 200 against 300, assuming some of the female guards are loyal to Che, that's a rout. He needs to neutralize Che's army before it enters the gates. How? He was standing in the laundry room's basement, a rank 0 slave with a brand, on the run, wanted by the authorities, with wet hands and soap under his fingernails. He won't be able to stop the army, but an army is made up of people, and people are driven by motives. The motive behind Che's army: money, loyalty, promises. 300 blades. How many of them are real mercenaries, and how many are bribed soldiers from the northern garrisons? Those very garrisons that hadn't been paid for 9 months. Those very soldiers whom the House of Cho had bought off with silk and wine. But you can't feed a family with silk and wine. Pay. The northern army hadn't been paid for 9 months. Ji-young stopped. A thread flashed in the registry. Golden. Brighter than all the rest. Pay. Where did he get the money? Nowhere. He's a slave. He doesn't have a single coin. But the empire does. The treasury isn't empty. The money was there. The Cho house stole it. But what was stolen can be recovered. White crane. 1,140,000 liang. Channeled through a front company. Yoo-han is with the Empress right now. She has all the documents. If the Empress orders the White Crane's accounts to be frozen, if she orders the House of Cho's assets to be confiscated under the treason statute, if she redirects the confiscated funds to immediately pay the salaries of the northern garrisons, then the soldiers will receive money. Not from the House of Cho, from the Empress. Not silk or wine. Silver, real silver, for 9 months' worth. The loyalty of the bribed soldiers will collapse overnight. Why die for Cho when the Empress is paying? Why side with the rebels when the crown has remembered you? 300 of Ban He's swords. 212 of them haven't been paid. If you pay them, they won't raise a sword. But how to convey this to the Empress? He's in the basement. She's on the 9th floor. Walls between them. Patrols. A manhunt for him. Jang Bo-gyu. No, too slow. A note. A basket. A chain. Each link is an hour. He doesn't have a watch. He might have just 1 day. Mi-ho. She's on the 3rd floor. She can go up to the 5th. To Yoo-hana. If Yoo-hana passes the message to the Empress. No. Yoo-hana is already with the Empress. Mi-ho can go up to Yoo-hana, but Yoo-hana is upstairs. Im-sola. She's the captain of the guard. She's mobilizing her troops right now. She can enter any floor under military protocol during a state of siege. If Jang Bo-gyu informs Im-sola. If Im-sola goes up to the 9th floor with a security report. If the report covers not only the military situation, but also the financial plan, confiscation, salaries, and payments. Im-sola isn't a financial expert. She won't be able to explain this to the Empress. But Mi-ho will. Mi-ho is a rank 3 financial inspector. She understands the numbers. If Im-sol-a takes Mi-ho with her to the 9th floor, the captain of the guard and the financial inspector, the military report and the financial plan. Together, at the same time. Ji-yoon whispered everything to Jang Bo-gyu. Every word, every number. The confiscation of the White Crane's accounts, the reallocation of funds, the immediate payment of salaries, the list of garrisons, the amounts, the names of the treasurers, delivery routes, everything from the register, everything from memory. Jang Bo-gyu listened. He nodded. Then he asked quietly, "How did he know all this?" Ji-young didn't answer. The old man looked at him. Those same eyes. Han Mu-yul. 200 years. He nodded. He left. Ji-young remained in the basement. Alone. Darkness all around. Rats. Cold stone. He lay there and waited. The goggles of insight. Plus 600 for the strategic decision to neutralize Cho's army through confiscation and the payment of salaries. Total, 4,500. 4,500. Conditional rank 4. Captain of the guard level. He lay in the darkness on the stone. A rank 0 slave. With rank 4 goggles. With rank 9 plans. A brand on his wrist. Soap under his fingernails. 9 floors above him. The empire is teetering. And he's counting. The throne room of the 9-layered palace could hold 1,000 people. That night, there were 312 inside. 300 of Cho Soryeon's blades, 12 of her closest female guards. Soryeon stood on the steps before the throne in the battle armor of the House of Cho. Black lacquer, a golden crest, a sword at her waist. At her feet, on the stone floor, sat Empress So-hwa. Her hands were bound with a silk cord. Her hair was disheveled. Her crown had been knocked off. She did not scream. She did not cry. She looked up at Soryeon with that very expression Ji-yoon had seen in others' descriptions. The cold composure of rank 9, more terrifying than any scream. Soryeon didn't notice. She was laughing. She had been waiting for this moment her whole life. 300 swords had entered through the northern gate 2 hours ago. Im-sol-a didn't make it in time. The guards had been redeployed to the southern gate due to a false report. A classic diversion. Ban-hee knew her stuff. While the guards were blocking the south, the Cho forces entered from the north. Im-sol-a's 200 palace fighters were pushed back to the barracks. Not killed. Just blocked. Im-sol-a is locked in the armory with 30 loyalists. Mi-ho is in the chancellery. The door is barricaded. Yu-hana has disappeared. Baek-yun-sol stood in the hall by a column, hands behind her back. Her face was stony. Next to her stood Moon Hae-won, pale, trembling. Ryu Sung-hwa was on her knees, crying. Chae Bong-hee sat in a chair to the right of the throne, already in the Empress's seat. Rank 8 on a rank 9 throne. She wasn't smiling. She was counting. Soryeon was shouting across the hall. "Who dares to object?" she cried. "Where is your secret genius?" she demanded. "Show him, or die in silence," she commanded. The hall was silent. The female officials stood along the walls. No one moved. 300 drawn swords were a convincing argument. Ban-hee raised her hand. Soryeon fell silent. Ban-hee quietly addressed the hall, as if to say, "The House of Chae does not desire bloodshed." As if to say, "The empire will remain." As if to say, "Only the name on the throne will change." As if to say, "Whoever swears allegiance voluntarily will retain their rank and position." As if to say, "Whoever refuses." She did not finish. The doors of the throne room opened. They didn't burst open. They opened quietly, slowly, as if someone had pushed them open with a single hand. Standing in the doorway was a man in a tattered gray shirt, thin, 17 years old, a brand on his right wrist. Inventory number Chen 417. Han Ji-young. Behind him was Im-sol-a, 30 fighters with drawn blades. She had escaped from the armory through an underground passage unknown to the Chos, a passage known to only one person, Jang Bo-gyu. He stood behind Ji-young with a ring of keys on his belt. Next to him was Yoon Mi-ho, She held scrolls in her hands, a stack of them. Each scroll bore a seal. Each had numbers. Each had names. The 312 people in the hall turned their heads toward the doors. Soryeon stopped laughing. Ban Hee rose from her chair. Ji Young entered the throne room. For the first time in 38 days, he stood before people of higher rank than third. The seal of silence. A single word without permission meant execution. But the hall was in the hands of the rebels. The law holds no power in the hands of the rebels. And he opened his mouth.
For the first time in 38 days, his voice was quiet, steady, without a tremor. He addressed the 300 swordsmen, not Soryeon, not Ban Hee, the soldiers. He said there were 300 of them. He said that 212 of them had not received their pay for 9 months. He said that yesterday the Empress had signed a decree confiscating the assets of the Che house. He said that this morning, couriers carrying silver had set out for all the northern garrisons. He said that 9 months' worth of pay would be paid in full, to everyone, down to the last coin, not from the Che family's treasury, from the imperial treasury, in silver. He said he knew this because he had drawn up the list, personally, every name, every amount. The hall fell silent. 212 soldiers, 9 months without pay. Families are starving, children are sick. And here stands a boy in a gray shirt saying the money is on its way. He said that 48 of the remaining are debtors of the Lin house. He said their debts were bought out this morning through the Office of Internal Investigations. He said the Lin house was under investigation. He said all debt obligations through the Lin house had been annulled as having been acquired through fraud. He said they were free of debt. 48 people in the hall lowered their swords. Not all at once. One by one, quietly, like leaves falling from a branch. Ji Young continued. It is said that 20 more of the remaining men are his informants from last month. They were eunuchs, gatekeepers, and laundry workers whom Soryeon had recruited into the army from among the palace servants by promising them freedom. He knew their names. It was not Soryeon who granted them freedom. It was the Empress who granted them freedom. And the Empress had already signed a decree granting free status to all male palace slaves who voluntarily laid down their weapons. 20 swords fell onto the stone. The clang of metal. An echo. Silence. Ji Young looked at Soryeon. They say 20 remain loyal to you. They say you'll order them to die for an empty treasury. Soryeon stood as white as a sheet. Her lips trembled. 20 fighters out of 300. Ban Hee's personal guard. 12 of Soryeon's closest guards. 32 against Im Sol Ah's 30. Almost equal forces, but Im Sol Ah's 30 are the palace guard. Professionals. Ban Hee's 20 were mercenaries. Soryeon's 12 were ceremonial guards. Im Sol Ah stepped forward. Her blade was drawn, her father's. The one she had honed for 8 years. Soryeon whispered, "Who? Who are you?" Ji Young raised his right hand. On his little finger was a ring, a jade signet ring, the family heirloom. The one that Lin Jiao had slipped onto her finger 38 days ago. The one that Im Sol Ah had taken from Lin Jiao 3 days ago by order of the Bureau of Investigations. The seal of the Han clan. 200 years old. The Empress, lying on the floor, raised her head. She looked at the ring, at his face, at his eyes. The very same eyes that Chang Bo-gyu had seen in the portrait of Han Mu-yeol. Baek Yun-sol, standing by the column, shuddered. She looked at the boy in the gray shirt and saw something she hadn't seen in 30 years as grand strategist. She saw someone smarter than herself. She slowly dropped to one knee. Yu Han emerged from the shadows behind the column. She had been here the whole time, watching, just as she had promised. She dropped to both knees, not before Ji Young, before what he represented. Ban Hee looked at her daughter. Soryeon looked at her mother. Between them lay an empty hall. 280 swords lay on the floor. Ban Hee's 20 closest guards exchanged glances. The elder looked at Im Sol Ah, at the 30 blades behind her, at Baek Yun-sol and Yu Han, who had dropped to their knees. She counted. She lowered her sword. The others followed her lead. Ban He closed her eyes. She opened them. She looked at Ji Yong, as if to say, "So this is what Han means." As if to say, 200 years. As if to say, it wasn't enough. Im-Sol-Ah stepped toward Soryan, a blade at her throat, as if to say, "In the name of the Empress." As if to say, "For treason." As if to say, "Her hands." Soryan held out her hands, a silk cord. The same one the Empress had been bound with, now around Soryan's wrists. Ban He didn't resist. She sat back down in the chair, not on the throne, in the chair, and waited. Im-Sol-Ah untied the Empress. So Huaya stood up, slowly. She smoothed her hair. She picked up the crown from the floor. She didn't put it on. She held it in her hand. She looked at Ji Yong, for a long time, scrutinizingly. A boy in a gray shirt, a brand on his wrist, a ring on his finger, a quiet voice. Numbers. Everyone precise. Everyone verified. She calculated faster than her ministers. She devised strategies more deeply than her generals. She had been a rank 9 for 30 years, and for the first time, she saw someone who thought the same way. No, faster. She smiled. For the first time in 5 years. Quietly, barely noticeably. And she spoke, as if to say, "So this is what he's like." As if to say, "Sit beside me." Ji Yong approached the throne. The Empress sat down. He sat beside her, one step lower. A servant on the steps of the throne. The hall watched, in silence. Im-Sol-Ah stood with a sword. Miho clutched scrolls to her chest. Zhang Bo-Gyu stood by the doors with the keys. Baek Yun-Sol was on one knee. Yu Hana was on both. 280 swords lay on the stone. Ban He was in handcuffs. Soryong was bound in silk ropes. The Empress turned to Ji Yun and asked quietly, as if to ask, "How many points?" He replied just as quietly, as if to say, "I don't know my rank." As if to say, "But the counter in my head shows something around 7,000. She nodded, as if to say, "Not bad for a start." As if to say, "For a slave." He allowed himself a smile. The 4th in 38 days, the longest one yet. An hour after Ban He and Soryan had been taken to the palace dungeons, Ji Yong stood by the window of the throne room and looked out at the city. Dawn. The first rays of light over the rooftops of the capital. Miho approached and stood beside him, silently. Then she said softly, "She always knew he wasn't just a slave with a rag." He replied, "She isn't just a scribe with ink-stained fingers." She smiled. It was their first normal conversation in 38 days. Im-Sol-Ah entered the hall. She reported that the garrisons at the capital's northern gates had come under the control of the palace guard, that Che's private army had laid down its arms completely, that Lin Jiao and Wei Lin had been detained at the provincial border. She said a jadeite necklace and documents regarding trade deals with the House of Che had been found on Lin Jiao. She said the necklace had been confiscated. She said the Lin trading house had been bankrupted by a decision of the Chancellery. Qi Yong listened. A necklace worth 800 liang, confiscated. The Lin trading house, ruined. Lin Jiao, detained. He walked over to the window. He looked east, toward the province, toward the carriage, toward the sister who had sold him out and smiled as she tried on the necklace, where his stepmother had tossed a copper coin into the dust at his feet. A chain of events that began on the day someone sold someone else for 800 liang. 47% annual interest. Debt settled. Zhang Bo-Gyu appeared at the door, an envelope in his hands. Old, yellow paper, a wax seal. He handed it to Ji Yun. He said he'd found it in a 200-year-old archive. He said it was in a restricted section on the 9th floor. He said it had been hidden behind a false wall. He said the seal. Ji Yun looked at the seal. The Han clan, Han Mu Yol. 200 years. He broke the wax seal, unfolded the paper. One line. Old handwriting. Faded ink. It said, "If you're reading this, it means they've returned." It said, "Run north." It said, "They're not after the throne." It said, "They're after the register." Ji Young read it twice. They. Not the House of Cho. Not Honggu. They. Who else? Someone Han Muyol feared 200 years ago.
Someone who knows about the register of 10,000 threads. Someone is not after the throne, but after the ability to see all the threads. After the power that awoke in the boy with the brand on his wrist the moment the red-hot iron pierced his skin. He rolled up the letter, put it in his pocket, walked over to the window, looked north. On the horizon, beyond the capital's walls, beyond the fields, beyond the hills, beyond the mountains. A red star. Bright. Not the one visible at night. Another one. A new one. The Empire's astronomers would name it later. The eye of those who think faster than us. It burned in the dawn sky like a red dot on white silk. Chi-Yong stared at it. The registry in his mind marked a new thread. A red one, stretching northward, beyond the mountains, beyond the border, beyond the limits of everything he knew. He spoke quietly, not to the audience, not to Miho, not to the Empress, to himself, as if to say, an 800 liang necklace, as if to say, the debt is paid off, as if to say, the interest is zero, as if to say, but the counter hasn't stopped, as if to say, the counter has only just begun to count. Behind him in the throne room, Empress So Hua sat on the throne and watched his back. The boy by the window, a gray shirt, a brand, a ring, a red star in his eyes. She said quietly to Baek Yun-sol, "Give him a rank." "Any rank he deserves," Baek Yun-sol replied. "She doesn't have a rank that he deserves. Because such a rank does not yet exist." The Empress nodded. "Then let's create one." Ji-Yun stood by the window and looked at the red star. 7,000 points. A brand on his wrist. A ring on his finger. The Empire behind him. The enemy ahead. The counter is ticking.